Welcome back to the channel. This is Storm, and you are watching a movie on what if Naruto's only hope was Hinata. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, wasting no time, let's start the story.
You already know this story. You've never heard it this way before, though. Some people might think it starts the night our brave hero was born. It was that same night that the nine-tailed fox demon almost destroyed the whole Leaf Village. The brave fourth Hokage gave up his life to protect his village and his future by putting the scary monster inside the baby hero. The baby hero had no choice but to do what he did. These things happened at the start of the great legend. We need to be a few years further along, though. After more than 3 years, in the first month of winter, this story takes place. As our young hero walked through an old, empty street, he saw a girl standing under a street lamp. She had strange, blonde hair and whiskers, and she was wearing warm clothes because it was cold. The boy thought she must be cold because she was only wearing a thin kimono and had no hat on top of her pretty blue hair. Why would you go outside in this weather and state? In that moment, he saw how she was hunched over and could hear her breathing several times because it was cold. The boy decided to go up to her and try to cheer her up when he saw a tear fall from her cheek onto the snow and heard the quietest sobs. The boy almost passed out when the girl turned her head toward him for the first time. The girl didn't have any eyes. The boy thought her eye looked like the moon because it was a gray cream color all the way around. His thoughts were shared with the girl, who was then told that they were beautiful. The compliment made the girl blush a little, and she said that no one had ever said that to her before. The boy smiled and took the girl's hand, saying he would take her home safely. The two had a nice conversation along the way and learned a lot about each other in a short time. When they finally got to the girl's house, the boy got up to leave, saying goodbye for good. That girl was brave to stop him, though. The girl asked him to meet her later that night, after everyone in her clan had gone to bed, because it was her birthday. She told him she would share her birthday cake with him as a way of saying thanks for being nice to her before. When they agreed to do it, the boy gave the girl his long, dark red scarf because he saw how much she liked it while they were walking. The things that happened that night will not be told now, because the truth will come out as this story goes on. I had a hard time getting through Ninja Academy. Think about what Naruto Uzumaki said. Even though he was always trying to find the funny side of failing, Naruto always did his best in school, even though not many people believed him. He trained day and night to try to keep up with his classmates, but he always failed the easiest jutsu, like transformation and clone, which he needed to pass in order to grow. It was really pretty strange. Naruto wasn't able to do the jutsus himself, but he could show his best friend Hinata Hyuga how to do them perfectly. Their classmates were shocked at first when they were always seen together, both inside and outside of the academy. There was a noble family in the village called Hinata, and they were very strict about rules and how they were raised. All of them were very careful about who they talked to and how they talked. However, the troublemaker was seen taking the young heiress to her clan's compound almost every day. Naruto was sometimes allowed inside, which was against holy rules and customs. There are no words that can fully describe how kind Hinata Hyuga is. Hinata was picked on because of her genetic eyes for months before she started going to Ninja Academy. The kids from her cousin's year made fun of her and pushed her around all the time. They were afraid of him, though. Hinata gave in to their pain at first because she thought it would end faster. Eventually, after her best friend told her to keep going, Hinata didn't give up on them. Not in the way you think. When Hinata asked what was wrong and how she could help the bullies in the last fight, they surrounded her. People who hurt her ran away when she smiled so sweetly at them. They felt bad about what they did. Naruto was sure that Hinata's smile could make anyone feel better. He talked about Sasuke Uchiha when they last talked about it. He usually thought a lot in class and didn't say anything unless the teacher asked him to. When he did, he gave very short answers. Being nice to the Hyuga girl was something Sasuke always did. Sometimes he ate lunch with her when she made one for him and Naruto when she had extra time in the mornings. He said Sasuke wasn't important. Hinata and Sasuke always played together while their parents talked about clan business before the incident with the Uchiha clan. There were times when it went on for hours, but they were never bored. Years later, after the event that shouldn't be talked about, Sasuke chose for them to stop playing together. Still, whenever Sasuke saw Hinata in public, he tried to be nice to her and dropped his tough guy act just for her. When they were learning together at the Ninja Academy, almost all of Sasuke's not-so-secret fans spoke out against it every time they sat with each other. Hinata would move to a different row and pull a yelling Naruto behind her so he wouldn't say anything mean to the girls and Sasuke. This kept them from getting into fights. Sasuke sat down next to Hinata one day, with Naruto sitting on the other side of her. When a fan tried to criticize the Hyuga girl, Sasuke glared at him and told them to get over it. They didn't bother Hinata again after that day, of course. Because she was near the top of her class, everyone paid close attention to what they said to her. Hinata owed that to Naruto, who always helped her train and told her to try again when she felt like she had failed. Without Naruto, Hinata would have failed the test to graduate. The clone jutsu was the last part of the test. At the very least, each student had to make 2 clones. They passed if they were convincing enough or if they could trick some of the proctors. When Hinata's turn came, Naruto's annoying cheers overpowered the silence as she walked down the steps and into the testing room. He told her to do her best. After focusing for a moment, Hinata was able to make a single copy that looked exactly like the original. One of the guards slowly threw a shuriken at the original, so it would miss and hit the clone. This was done to see which was the real one. Everyone was shocked when Hinata and her clone both decided to try to catch the shuriken, even though it was dangerous. Once she was done, Hinata cancelled the jutsu and stood in the opposite direction of where she started. All of the proctors praised her work and said it was the best they had ever seen from a student. After that, Naruto's turn came. Naruto was definitely scared about using the clone jutsu. There was always something wrong with it, no matter how many times he trained on it. This time was no different. After the jutsu was used, Naruto's clone came out next to him, but it looked like he was dead because it was lying on the ground. It was the 3rd time he failed the test. Later, Naruto sat on his favorite swing and watched with sadness as the families of his classmates celebrated their graduation. Some parents whispered to each other that he didn't deserve to graduate when they saw him watching. She quickly found him and sat down next to him on the ground to comfort him. She thought her words would help, but they didn't. Naruto was upset that he didn't get to graduate again, but he was even more upset that he missed the chance to be on the same team as Hinata. As the crowd slowly thinned out, a man with long brown hair and eyes that looked just like Hinata's came up to them. Only giving him a quick glance, Naruto said, "Hello, Lord Hiashi." "Father, you're early," Hinata said in a low voice. "I wasn't expecting you for a few more minutes." Hiashi looked between his daughter and the sad boy and thought, "You didn't pass?" Without even a nod, Naruto mumbled, "This time I really tried. It was important to me to pass so I could show you, Iruka-sensei, and everyone else that I have what it takes to be a ninja." The leader of the Hyuga clan promised, "I will talk to your sensei and Lord Hokage about you retaking the exam." He did this after watching the boy's sad behavior and his daughter's sympathetic gaze. Naruto perked up, and he behaved like he does when he's excited. "Really?" he screamed. "You think they will?" Hiashi said, "It doesn't hurt to ask. I will speak to you again momentarily." Hiashi walked over to where the 2 ninjas were standing before anyone else could speak. Naruto and Hinata looked at the 3 of them with hope as they talked. There was surprise in Iruka's wide eyes as he looked at his 2 friends after Hiashi said something. After a few more short words and a simple bow, Hiashi went back to the children who were waiting eagerly. With just a hint of a smile, he was ready. After taking a moment to think about what had been said, Hiashi said, "This is your last chance. You will be able to take the graduation exam again tomorrow morning, before all the genin are sent to their 3-man teams." Naruto smiled bigger than he ever had and said, "Thank you, Lord Hiashi. There's no need. My daughter is here and alive because of you," Hiyashi told the kunoichi as he stared at it in shock. When they walked into their classroom for the final time, everyone was shocked by what they saw. Naruto was sitting in the front row, grinning from ear to ear. He looked very tired. He had cuts and scratches all over his body and clothes, making him look like he had just come back from hard training. Iruka looked just as bad, but she was obviously much more worn out. A lot of people were shocked to see Naruto with a Leaf Village headband on and Iruka without hers. Hinata was one of the first people to get there and the only one who seemed to care about Naruto's wounds. Naruto gave her a silly smile and said he'd tell her the story of how he got the headband when they were teammates. But, of course, the two friends' plans couldn't come true. It began when almost everyone showed up for the team sorting. Hinata was in the middle of the table, and Naruto sat across from her. Sasuke had to sit across from him. When Sakura and Ino rushed in, the room went from being quiet and full of simple chatter to being filled with loud yelling over who got in first. As expected, they stopped fighting as soon as they saw Sasuke. When Ino saw that there were no more seats available at the table, she chose to move, even though she didn't want to. As for Sakura, she asked Hinata in a brave voice if she could move so Sakura could sit next to Sasuke. Naruto didn't have time to say anything bad before Hinata put her hand on his, putting him at ease right away. Hinata said yes with a smile that warmed my heart, but only if Sakura doesn't say anything mean or rude to Naruto. It surprised Sakura that she was asked to keep a secret, but she did it anyway so she wouldn't miss her chance to sit next to her, Sasuke. He pouted about the new situation while Hinata moved to a row further back. He was too tired and worn out to argue or move with her. Well, at least they would soon be teammates. But things don't work out the way they planned. When everyone got there, Iruka-sensei went through the list of teams and talked to each one. Naruto got very angry when he found out he was paired with Sasuke and Sakura instead of Hinata. He asked loudly why he and Hinata couldn't be on the same team. As soon as the blonde boy was done talking, Iruka calmly told him that the plans were made based on how the test went. Because Naruto's grades were the worst in the class, he was put with Sasuke and Sakura, who have two of the best grades. Lord Hokage thought Hinata would be better off on a surveillance team with Kiba and Shino, even though she had one of the highest scores. The Hokage was the only one who could switch teams, and he made it clear that would not be changed. Naruto and Hinata walked to the Hyuga compound together after meeting their new sensei and getting to know their teammates. Naruto was still upset about what had happened. She finally told them what happened the night before when they got inside and her father was making tea for them. Mizuki-sensei lied to me about a rule with the graduation exam, Naruto said slowly so he wouldn't get too loud and rash, which was something the other members of the clan didn't like. He told me I could graduate if I could master one jutsu from the sacred scroll. After a few hours, Iruka-sensei found me and saw that I had learned one jutsu. If I told Iruka-sensei what Mizuki said, he would protect me when Mizuki attacked us. Hinata gasped when she heard the news. Why would he? He wanted revenge, Hiyashi thought, for something. I remind you, you are not responsible for. The nine-tailed demon attacked the village, Naruto made it clear. Mizuki told me it was sealed inside me, which is why most people hate me.
When I told him and Iruka-sensei I already knew, they were shocked.
It was bound to happen. We were told not to talk about what happened. He stopped to take a sip of his tea. What happened next? It was the multi-shadow clone jutsu that I used to attack Mizuki, Naruto said while thinking about something. They were real, solid copies. I made at least 1,000, if not hundreds. That's amazing. Hinata gave praise. Iruka-sensei must have been so proud of you. Naruto adjusted his headband with a big smile on his face. Iruka-sensei gave me his headband and told me I graduated, he said with pride. We went to Ichiraku Ramen this morning to celebrate. Then his smile faded as he thought back on the day's events. Hinata, I wish we were on the same team. We couldn't have been stopped, you know? Hiyashi told the kids, there were many reasons why you two weren't on the same team. The kids looked at him blankly. The Hokage and your two new senseis talked about it for a long time. Because of what happened all those years ago, we came to the conclusion that you two would be too careful on missions because you would be worried about each other's safety too much. The Hokage might put your two teams together on a mission after seeing how the next few missions go. Your teams will be paired up more often if the mission goes well. At least that was something I was able to get for you. The girl said, thank you, father, and she bowed. We will prove to you that we can handle it. Hiyashi looked at his daughter and said, Hinata, why don't you clean up Naruto's guest room? It looks like he's going to fall asleep any second. Naruto shook his head in a weak way. I'm not tired, Lord. While the name was being said, the boy with blonde hair let out a huge yawn. Naruto put his hand over his mouth and said, sorry, I guess I am. Hiyashi told her, we'll talk more after you've rested. You'll need as much as you can get since your real training starts tomorrow. His team finally got a C-rank mission, but it was a lot more dangerous than they thought it would be after all the D-rank missions they had been on. While he was working as an escort in another country, Hinata was left behind in the village to do some tasks that she always went wrong on. It wasn't always her fault. Some things would happen that would make the mission go in a different direction without her control. When Hinata wasn't on missions, she spent most of her time training to get stronger because she thought she was to blame. On occasion, her teammates would find her asleep on the practice field, with clear signs of blood on the tree that was covered in mats. They told Hinata off for training too hard many times, but she was always at the training field. After that, Naruto finally went back home. After coming back from the Land of Waves, Naruto asked if he could go into the village before them. Upon his arrival, he planned to surprise someone. Sakura and Sasuke thought he was talking about Iruka-sensei. He was talking about Hinata, though, and Kakashi-sensei knew it. Once he was given permission, Naruto ran faster than he has all trip to get ahead of the three. Naruto made it to the Hyuga compound in just a few minutes. He stood outside the main gates and breathed heavily. Naruto took a moment to calm down because he knew that most of the clan didn't like how excited he was. Then he sneaked through the gates and walked calmly to where he thought Hinata would be. Her very own flower garden. They were about 8 or 9 years old at the time. Hinata and Naruto were walking through the compound when they saw a clearing with many empty flower beds of different sizes and shapes. Since then, Hinata bought the seeds and soil for the area to make it look nice with any extra cash she had. After 4 years of work, she was only happy with half of the flower beds as they were. As expected, Naruto found Hinata pulling weeds out of the huge flower bed in the middle of the clearing. Naruto didn't say anything to her when he saw her, so she jumped in fear when he started pulling weeds next to her. Naruto fake apologized for what he did while laughing at her reaction and then promised he wouldn't do anything like that again. They took turns telling each other about what they did while they were apart while they worked on the flower garden. Hinata's story was very simple. She trained, went on missions, did gardening, and so on. Naruto took a little longer to explain what he had to do. They were taking a bridge builder to the Land of Waves, but it turned out that people who didn't want the bridge finished had marked him for death. Kakashi was fighting the man with the huge sword, and Sakura was watching out for the bridge builder. Naruto and Sasuke had to fight a guy who had trapped them in an ice dome and was attacking them with ice needles. The two did live, and the hired killer did kill the person who hired him. It was a plot twist I didn't see coming. She told Naruto off for going to the Hyuga compound first instead of the hospital to get checked out after hearing the whole story. It would have been better to wait a few more hours to see her until she got a clean bill of health and was sure that the battle hadn't hurt her in any way. He decided he had stayed too long for the day after a few more hours of just talking to each other. He had to get back to his apartment to rest before meeting with his team tomorrow. Kakashi told them he had something important to tell them. It turned out that the announcement was about the Chunin exam that Kakashi had signed them up for. Kakashi thought they were ready for it, even though it was earlier than planned. They will get any last-minute training they need in the week before the tests. In other words, Naruto trained every single minute of the week. Naruto fought with the blonde boy for an hour and then tied him up before he let himself be taken to his apartment to rest. When the three people got to the ninja academy early the next morning, they saw a big group gathering on what they thought was the third floor, which was where the test was supposed to happen. The doors were blocked by two ninjas who looked like Chunin. They kept saying that people who don't think they could handle it should leave now and that they were only trying to get rid of the weak links. When Sasuke and Sakura showed off their genjutsu on the second floor, one of the guys tried to attack Sasuke while he was trying to defend himself. Then, a genin in a silly green jumpsuit and bow-cut hair blocked both attacks before they could hit. The big group then split up to go to the actual testing floor. The genin who stopped the attack called himself Lee and flirted with Sakura in a rude way until she got scared. Lee was being too careless, so his teammates came over to scold him. That's when Naruto saw a face he knew. Because he knew there would be a bad response, he tensed up and said, "Hi, Neji." Neji glared at the person who spoke, pointing out his name in the voice that he knew. "I heard there were rookie teams competing this year, but I didn't think you would be one of them." "Why?" Naruto made a challenge. "You know I always want to get stronger, so I can become Hokage." He laughed at the claim. "Uncle Hiyashi had to vouch for you so you could take the graduation test 4 times because you want to be Hokage. The Hyuga clan is the only reason you've made it this far in life, let's face it." Naruto said, "I get that you hate me." "I do. You should talk to your uncle, though. Things did not go the way you think they did that night. Also, stop being mean to Hinata about it. She wasn't to blame and couldn't do anything about it. There were 3 of us." Neji shot back, "And you need to stop getting involved with clan business. Just because you have your own room, are allowed to visit on certain days, and are allowed to sleep over once a week doesn't mean that you are a Hyuga." "I know that." Naruto said this in a rage. "Most of the clan's rules and traditions and rules are ridiculous and I plan on changing it after I become Hokage." Neji laughed again. "You will never become Hokage, because you are a failure." Neji's last answer made him turn on his heels and walk toward the exam room, with his teammates close behind him. Once they were out of sight, Sakura quickly raised an eyebrow and turned her head toward Naruto. "What was that all about? How do you know that person?" "He's Hinata's older cousin," Naruto said in part. "And I don't want to talk about him any longer. We need to focus on the Chunin exams." The Chunin exam started off badly, but Naruto felt better when he saw his favorite person there. Naruto really believed that the whole Chunin exam would be a huge mess after dealing with the mess on the second floor and seeing Sasuke and Lee fight for no reason. They were back at the Ninja Academy for almost an hour before they finally made it to the first part of the test room. Team 7 was the last team to arrive, so everyone was looking at them as soon as they walked into the room. They were quickly found by another Leaf Village rookie team made up of Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamichi, and Ino Yamanaka. They talked to each other for a short time. After some lighthearted banter, another rookie team came up to them. At that point, Naruto thought things were finally getting interesting. "Hinata." Naruto yelled to say hello. "You're here." The boy with blonde hair ran up to her and almost picked her up off the ground to greet her before she could say anything. Hinata told Naruto that they had just seen each other a few days ago and that he missed her. He said that it had been too long, like a few days. When the Rookie 9 met up again, Hinata had a strange feeling that reminded her of the incident a few years ago. Hinata stopped looking at the other genin teams when she saw a boy about her age who had bright red hair, dark circles under his eyes, and the love kanji on one side of his forehead. She could tell he was angry, but she felt more sadness. Like when they first met Naruto. Hinata took one step toward him before Sasuke stopped her and asked her what she was planning to do. She told the genin in a calm voice that she only wanted to talk to him because he looked like he felt lonely. Almost all of the Rookie 9 were against the idea. He and every other genin in the room gave off an air of danger that was too strong. Hinata didn't change her mind. She insisted that they should get to know someone before judging them. Sasuke turned to Naruto for help because he could see that nothing he said would make her listen. The Uchiha asked his teammate to talk some sense into a friend they both had. No one else could get Hinata to listen to anyone else. They looked at each other and waited for the other person to look away. "Do you really want to talk to Gaara?" Naruto asked after some time had passed. Not even a second of hesitation, Hinata said, "I do." After a short pause, Naruto put out his hand. The others were surprised when he smiled warmly. "Then let's go talk to him together." Naruto. "We'll be fine since we're going together," Naruto said, cutting off the protester. "And there are so many people around that he can't do anything bad to us." To be fair, Hinata is the best person to judge people by. "I will try to be friends with Gaara if she wants to be friends with him." Naruto smiled at the pretty girl and grabbed her hand before she or he could change their minds. "Let's go make a new friend." The idea that Hinata's smile could melt anyone's heart was proven once more when they met Gaara of the Sand. The two finally got to the Sand Shinobi and his team after navigating their way through the mismatched and somewhat scary genin. At first glance, Gaara gave them the stink eye and asked them what they wanted so they would leave him alone. Naruto spoke first because he knew what the redhead was like. The boy from Uzumaki told him calmly that Hinata wanted to talk to him. When Hinata officially introduced herself, she held out her hand and smiled so sweetly that it could light up a room. Gaara raised an unamused eyebrow and asked her what she was up to. Hinata said it was proper to shake hands with someone on the first meeting because it was the first thing that friends do. Gaara laughed at the thought and said she didn't want or need to be friends with someone like him. Naruto quickly stood up for the Hyuga girl. He quickly told Hinata again how she became his friend when he was so young and no one in the village dared to look at him unless they were angry. Hinata was his only friend for many years, until a few months before they graduated from Ninja Academy. It was time for Hinata to show what a great friend she could be. Gaara surprised his teammates and siblings, Temari and Kankuro, when he shook Hinata's hand, even though he was still not sure. Hinata then introduced Naruto again with an even bigger smile. She tried not to laugh when they awkwardly shook hands just to make her happy. As soon as the boys said hello, Hinata offered to show Gaara and his group around the village after the first or second part of the Chunin exam. Naruto liked the thought and said they could show the three people the best ramen in the village. Everyone who was interested in the strange conversation was shocked when Gaara agreed. He wanted to learn more about the village and the two of them because they seemed so interesting and brave. Someone said something about Gaara, and when they asked him about it, he said that everyone in the Sand Village was too scared to look at him. Before they could make official plans for the tour, Ibiki Morino, who was in charge of the first exam, finally showed up. Ibiki told everyone that the first part would be a written exam when he introduced himself. Even though Naruto wants to keep going, he should have given up right then. After setting everyone up in seats away from their team, the Chunin went over the rules for this part. If there were 10 questions, each person would get a score based on how many they got right. Any genin getting a 0 means the whole team fails. When someone is caught cheating, 2 points will be taken away from their score. The whole team fails when the score drops to 0. As expected, Naruto went crazy inside when he read each hard question, because they were all harder than the last one. During the whole test, he would have wished he had never taken it in the first place. If he hadn't felt a soft, comforting hand put on his, it would have calmed him down right away. When Naruto finally looked to his right and saw the moon-eyed genin sitting next to him, he seemed to calm down. Hinata gave him a soft smile and told him he could do it. If he wanted, she could give him her answers too. Naruto stiffly shook his head and said it wouldn't feel right for him to do that. Then something strange took place. Right after he finished talking to Hinata in a whisper, Naruto felt something rough around his hand. When Naruto looked down, he quickly realized that the sand on his hand was what was hurting him. If the sand had its own will, it would start to move Naruto's hand, making it hard for him to write answers that could be read. The blonde-haired ninja wasn't going to say anything. He had to remember to thank the Sand Genin later, though. He was still a little nervous about the test, but that went away. Naruto was much more sure than before that he would make it to the second part of the test, unless someone was lying to him. When his team members saw that he was finally writing something down, they were glad. After that, it was time to answer the 10th question. Before the answer was revealed, Ibiki let those who didn't want to answer the last question leave, because if they got it wrong, they would never be able to take the Chunin exams again. It goes without saying that the number of teams quickly dropped as the exit filled up with scared ninja. Ibiki asked if anyone else wanted to leave when the last person in that group did so. It was their last chance. As the level-headed ninja that he was, Naruto stood to make a statement. Naruto basically said that he wouldn't back down from any challenge. He didn't care that he would always be a genin because he got the question wrong. He promised that he would still become Hokage one way or another. Ibiki saw that the remaining competitors had a newfound sense of resolve and said, all of the teams that were still in the room passed the first test. After some confusion and shouts, the Chunin calmly explained what the written exam was for. The first 9 questions were meant to see how well they could gather information. Ibiki put 2 Chunin among the genin who knew all the answers so that everyone could get the right information. When Naruto realized that one of them had been sitting right in front of him the whole time, he almost lost it. As for the 10th question, it was meant to see how brave and determined the contestants were. Before he talked about the second part of the test, Ibiki began in a rough and gruff voice, "There is something I want to figure out first. Those of you from the Hidden Sand Village, which of you has the ability to manipulate sand with your chakra?" People from that village who were competing turned to look at Gaara. They all had scared or worried looks on their faces because they didn't know what the redhead would do next. But Gaara just glared at the Chunin and asked, "Why does it matter?" Ibiki said, almost to himself, no one has ever tried to help someone from a village other than their own in the history of the Chunin exams. The Chunin who caught you wasn't sure if they should take the points away from you or the Naruto Uzumaki boy you helped. Why did you do it? Gaara's glare got even stronger when he said, his friend wanted to become my friend too. Everyone was looking at him. He stood up for her when I tried to brush off the idea. I told them I was thinking about it to show that I am. Ibiki laughed when she heard that answer and then said, I think the 3 of you have formed what will be the greatest alliance in the history of the Chunin exam. I can't wait to see where it takes you. Gaara and Hinata and Naruto's alliance, that they made by accident, was probably one of the best things they've ever done. Naruto thought that eating at his favorite restaurant in the village would be the best way to celebrate making it to the second round. Hinata was amused by how eager he was and how much he loved such simple food, so she offered to pay for 1 bowl for him and Gaara. They were able to get Gaara to join them. Even though they invited the rest of Rookie 9 and Gaara's siblings, they all turned them down because they wanted to study for the second part of the exam. While this was going on, Naruto and Hinata learned that it's hard to get Gaara to say more than 1 word. Gaara's likes and dislikes were asked about, and then they asked him if there was anything he wanted to know about them. Naruto and Hinata told him again how they met all those years ago when he asked them to. They talked in depth about how Naruto led Hinata back home. Also, the terrible night when Naruto lost it and almost let the fox go free. There was no way for Naruto to hide the fact that the 9-tailed fox was inside him. He didn't want to lie to someone he wants to be friends with about it because almost everyone in the village knew. Gaara didn't look shocked. There must have been a reason for it. Still, when everyone was done with their bowl of ramen, which Gaara agreed was tasty, the boys were nice enough to walk Hinata to her house, and then Naruto took Gaara to his hotel. Like he thought he would, the Uzumaki boy politely declined the Sand Ninja's offer to stay the night in his apartment. Those who made it to the second round the next morning got to the Forest of Death before dawn. Anko Mitarashi, who was in charge of the second round, told everyone what their goal was. Each team was given either a heaven or an earth scroll before going into the forest. The genin has to get the other scroll from a different team once they get inside. The next part of the tests will only be given to people who make it to the tower in the middle of the forest with both scrolls. The scroll Hinata and her team needed was found after almost an hour of searching through the forest. There were no major fights between any of the teams. Kiba thought it would be fun to hold a team hostage while they got their scroll to avoid a fight. Luckily, the plan worked, and they were on their way to the tower in record time and speed. Then a chakra that was very strong and angry scared Akamaru. Kiba's ninja dog, who was about the size of a puppy, stopped moving forward and started shaking with fear. While they were trying to figure out what scared him so much, they heard a group of ninjas chatting, sounding like they were ready to fight. Hinata woke up when she saw Gaara and his siblings getting ready to fight some people from the hidden rain village. She was watching from some bushes nearby. Actually, Gaara was getting ready to fight, even though he didn't need to. The rain ninja tried to attack, but Gaara's chakra-filled sand blocked each one. It looked like the sand had its own mind because of the way it moved. It looked like the sand around the rain shinobi was going to suffocate them to death. Gaara stopped, though. Gaara said, "You are lucky," shifting his attention to the side. He does not want her to see us kill. The plan was for the sand to kill them, but it only choked them until they passed out, leaving them unconscious instead. Gaara waited a moment to make sure, then she called out, "Byakugan Princess, you and your teammates can come out now. No one will get hurt." Kiba and Shino did everything they could to get Hinata to change her mind, but she still came out of the bushes with her famous smile on her face, acting like she hadn't seen anything horrible. "Hi, Gaara," she said. "I'm glad that you're safe." Gaara asked, "Do you need this one?" As he watched his sand pick up the rain shinobi's scroll. "If you need me to, I can find another one." "My team has the scrolls we need," Hinata said in a kind voice. "We're traveling to the tower now, same as you." Gaara asked, "Do you and your team want to join us?" He hesitated again, as if he were debating what he was going to say. Gaara. Gaara turned his attention back to the Hyuga girl and stifled the protest with a simple glare. "If you lead my team to the tower," he agreed, "I'll protect your team from any harm that may come our way." Hinata quickly agreed, acting like she was thinking about it for a moment. She agreed, "That sounds like a fair trade. Follow me." The record for the fastest time to finish the second exam was broken by Hinata and Gaara's team. The two teams got to the tower in less than 2 hours, and now they had the rest of the test to be incredibly bored. They told Hinata over and over to stay away from the Sand siblings, but she still tried to have good conversations with them when they let her. Tamari and Kankuro would talk to her with some interest sometimes, mostly when they talked about the village. The five would catch Hinata using her Byakugan every couple of hours while she looked out the tower window. People would ask Hinata what she was looking for, and she would smile and say that she was checking to see if any teams were about to join them. Hinata would force herself to close her eyes for a while after using her inherited power for almost an hour straight. The jutsu had reached its limit. It was easy for Kiba and Shiba to show Hinata where she needed to go in that huge tower. But just in case, she could always feel sand grains lightly touching her arm. As the days went by, Hinata began to worry as 3 more teams joined the 2 that were already there. With her Byakugan, Hinata could see that Naruto's team was close, but they were up against a group that kept using shadow clones. The other team was just waiting until time ran out so that neither of them could move on to the next round. Gaara asked the Hyuga girl how close the fight was to the tower because she looked like she was getting more worried. Gaara sent Sand out the window without saying a word after figuring out the general direction and distance. No one else saw it. During that battle, Naruto and his team were almost worn out. When they had to deal with clones over and over again, they were sure the cycle would never end. Until a swirl of sand showed up in front of them. Everyone was confused for a moment, but Naruto was so relieved when the sand turned into a copy of Gaara, who looked just as mad as before. Before the other team could move or try to attack, Gaara's sand wrapped around every clone and climbed up their bodies until it was around their necks. As they squeezed harder and harder, the clones disappeared, and the original 3 passed out from lack of oxygen. Gaara was happy, so he turned to look at Naruto and ignored his other 2 teammates. Gaara told the boy from Uzumaki to move faster. Their Byakugan princess was getting more antsy and worried by the second as time ran out. Naruto smiled like he was sure of himself and said that they would be there in a few minutes. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were on time and got to the tower with both scrolls, just as they had promised. When Naruto got to an arena hidden inside the tower's walls, he saw the other teams that had made it through with their senseis. He was too focused on his Byakugan princess, though, whose eyes looked like the moon and were filled with happiness and wonder. Naruto jumped forward and hugged Hinata tightly, picking her up off the ground.
He didn't care about the protests that followed.
Naku spoke over and over about how much he missed her and was thankful that she didn't look hurt. Hinata begged Naruto many times to put him down, which made Naruto laugh at how eager he was. As he reluctantly listened to her, Naruto gave her a sheepish smile and then turned to face Gaara. The boy from Uzumaki officially thanked him for his help earlier, making him smile with joy. They wouldn't have made it without him. Gaara hesitated and tried to pick the right words before insisting that they didn't need to say, "thank you," because they were friends. The third Hokage thought it was time to call for a preliminary round while everyone was still trying to make sense of the strange conversation and situation. Since 21 genin made it through the second round, at least half had to be eliminated in order to move on to the final round. The genin would spar with each other in random matches to see who would move on. Each match's winner would move on. To sum up quickly, some games were fun to watch, while others were a little dull because they ended so quickly. Sasuke was the first person to fight and win. The Uchiha boy had to go to the hospital instead of watching the rest of the matches because he was hurt from the second exam and his match. If Gaara and his siblings wanted to watch the fights with Hinata and her team, they were welcome to. Naruto said it was a great idea before they could say anything. On one part of the raised observatory, Gaara, Hinata, his siblings, and his sensei stood in the middle. Hinata was on the side closest to the stairs. Naruto and the rest of the Leaf Village teams were on the other side. It looked like those few kept looking over at the Sand Shinobi, as if they weren't sure them. But who could blame them? As for the matches, it was pretty clear who would win, and most of them were from the Leaf Village. The ones that Temari and Kankuro won were easy and didn't get hurt at all. 10-10, one of their opponents, was lucky to be alive after the match. Naruto's turn to fight Kiba had finally come after what seemed like a very long time. The Leaf genin that haven't fought yet groaned in dislike. They were all excited to fight Naruto because they thought it would be so simple to win. They were shocked when Naruto kept up with Kiba without any trouble. A lot of people couldn't believe Naruto could get back up so many times after getting hit hard. It was wonderful to be able to control so many transformations at once. If they had to be honest, Naruto deserved to win because he was so determined and worked so hard. Then there was the next match, which some people hoped would never happen. She had to fight Neji, her still angry cousin. Hinata took off her jacket and ninja headband before joining him on the main battle floor so they wouldn't be too heavy. That meant she was only wearing her undershirt. She showed a thin line of a scar on her neck. Neji couldn't stop staring at her once she got to the floor. That damn scar had his full attention. He knew Hinata was just showing it off to get him excited. Because he got that scar the night before the main branch killed his father. For the sake of family, Neji tried to get Hinata to give up before either of them could act. Hinata refused in a stubborn way. She wanted to show that she has become stronger and doesn't need anyone to protect her all the time. Neji laughed at the idea and asked how she could prove it when it was clear that he was the better taijutsu user. That's when Hinata had her very smart thought. She reached into the pouch on her leg and grabbed two things. She threw one at her cousin and dropped the other on purpose at her feet. Bombs that smoke. Most people were shocked by what they saw. Her cousin was caught off guard, and the smoke burned his eyes for a moment. Everyone was interested in what she was doing. That being said, Naruto knew exactly what Hinata was up to because he was praising her so loudly for having such a great idea. When the smoke cleared, most people gasped in shock. They saw two Hinatas, one with a kunai and the other with the Byakugan trait, which comes from her family's bloodline, turned on. Hinata launched an attack on her cousin with her double. She was very impressive when she fought in two very different styles. There was the traditional gentle fist style, which blocked chakra points. She then swung her kunai around like it was the only way she knew how to fight and tried to cut somebody anywhere she could. Someone said it made them think of Sasuke's style. Naruto said it was possible because he knew that Sasuke and Hinata had fought as kids. People who saw her were amazed at how hard she was making things for Neji. He had to try because of a clone, even though he was known as the strongest genin to come out of the Leaf Ninja Academy. He got hit a few times, but Hinata's cuts on his arm and cheek were the worst. Neji was, without a doubt, getting angry. Besides the annoying cheering that was drowning out his thoughts, he could feel Hinata becoming more sure of herself and brave with each attack. Those things had to stop before it was too late. Neji went after the Byakugan Hinata because he thought she was the real Hinata after he pushed the kunai Hinata away and put her on her back. He hit her in the chest as hard as he could before she could defend herself, leaving her behind in a puff of smoke. The arena was filled with gasps that were almost louder than Hinata's coughing fit. Hinata was on her knees, hunched over, trying to get her breathing back together. She had sat up from where she had fallen, but her hands were on her chest. Every couple of sips of air made them cough, and a few drops of blood came out. She did not expect the loss of her clone to hurt so much. When Sakura saw that the poor Hyuga girl was shaking so badly, she asked Kakashi-sensei what she was doing when her clone was the one who was hurt. The Chunin calmly told Hinata that the version of the jutsu she used let her feel every attack and pain done to her clone after it was defeated. The same way Naruto does it with his clones. After some trouble, Hinata was able to breathe normally again, but she still couldn't move. She could only stare up at her cousin, who was giving her such a mean look. Neji told Hinata to keep her head down if she wanted to be healthy. Then he called her stupid for fighting him, which was a very stupid thing to do. Once more, Hinata surprised everyone in the arena by giving her cousin a warm smile. She said that Neji was the stupid one of the two of them. Due to his strong dislike of the main branch, he came to his own opinion about what had happened on that fateful night a long time ago. For some reason, Hinata admitted that he thought she killed his father when in reality she was just asleep at the time. They didn't know if she was angry because what she said was true or because she brought up his dead father. They only knew that Neji ran toward her and looked like he meant to kill her. Naruto was the first person to answer. Naruto jumped down from the stands and stood with his kunai drawn in front of Hinata. What used to be electric blue eyes were now deep blood red with black holes in them for pupils. His teeth had turned into fangs, and his lip was curled into a mean snarl. The fox wanted to draw blood from the Byakugan princess's wounds. He wasn't the only one. Something that felt like a magnetic pull stopped Neji before he could go half the distance. Neji was shocked, along with everyone else, when he looked down and saw that his hands and feet were covered in hardened sand. He tried to move, but the sand got tighter every time he did something small. Hinata looked up at the person she knew was to blame with wide eyes. Gaara was angry, just like Naruto. His green eyes had yellow irides and pupils that looked like a black star with 4 points and 4 black dots around it. Gaara slowly began to close his hand around Neji while his hand was still outstretched. This made the sand around him tighter until he groaned in pain. Hinata finally got the words out under her breath, "Stop." It's not clear from the way Gaara's hand was moving that he heard her. He made a fist. "I said, stop." Hinata yelled. "Shukaku." As soon as the name was called out, everything and everyone stopped. A lot of the leaf shinobi looked confused, but all of the sand shinobi jerked back out of habit. Gaara looked the most shocked. His eyes went back to their normal green color. "How did you?" Gaara's speech stopped short in doubt. "I never said his name before." "How could you possibly?" Naruto temporarily scrunched up his nose in confusion, but when he made the connection, he went back to being himself. Gaara. Naruto spoke slowly at first. You have one too? The Leaf Chunin, Junin, and Hokage finally got it when that question asked why that name was so important. Gaara wasn't interested in how they looked. He couldn't take his eyes off of the girl with the moon eyes. Her eyes got a little smaller. You and Shukaku must not hurt my cousin, Hinata said in a harsh voice. Gaara calmly said, as you wish, Hinata Hyuga. The sand found its way back to the gourd as she held her gaze for a moment. After such a long battle in the aftermath, Hinata passed out right away from being too tired. She was hurt, but Naruto caught her before she could do more damage. The medics rushed to her side right away, yet they knew they only had a short time to save her life. Naruto swore at that moment that he would beat Neji and make him understand the truth about that night. The fox was a little less angry, but the tanuki still wanted blood. It was time for the next match, which was between Rock Lee and Gaara. Almost everyone had calmed down and gone back to the viewing area. Now that the Leaf Chunin, Junin, and Hokage knew about Gaara's condition, they were too careful in this fight. They were amazed that Lee's speed and taijutsu skills were enough to make Gaara have such a hard time. After that, the tanuki began to lose its clients. To skip over the gross details, Gaara hit Lee in the leg and arm with his sand. Gaara was about to deliver the killing blow when Guy-sensei blocked it, which made Gaara calm down. Gaara quit while the sand was going back into the gourd, but it didn't matter. Lee lost when his sensei stepped in. All the winners from the other fights met at the main level after the final fight to talk about the third part of the exam. The third Hokage told those who were still alive that there would be a fighting tournament. Now that everyone has seen how everyone fights, there will be 1 month of training before the end of the Chunin exams. After a month of training with Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin, but not making much progress, Naruto went back to the village with one goal in mind. Go to Hinata. Hinata miraculously lived through her heart surgery. It was like someone was watching over her. Hinata would not have lived if the fight had gone on or if she had gotten any other kind of injury. When Naruto heard that, he thanked Gaara a million times for stepping in. Anyway, Naruto saw a redhead standing at the main gates as he walked through the village with a gift to bring to the clan compound. The stranger, who was carrying a plant Naruto had never seen before, stared blankly at the doors. After getting over his shock, Naruto greeted his friend with a big smile. Gaara didn't say or do much. Just a simple nod to show that he understood as he kept looking at the gates. It looked like he was thinking about what to do next. The Leaf Genin opened the gates without fear before the Sand Genin could make up his mind. Naruto told Gaara to follow him because he knew exactly where the Byakugan princess was. Gaara slowly followed Naruto again once he was inside the holy place for a while, as if he was still trying to decide. They made their way through the many turns and twists, mostly to avoid his first match opponent. Eventually, they arrived at the beautiful girl working in one of her flower beds and looked at her. She dug her hands into the dirt and didn't care that the minerals got on her beautiful baby blue kimono. There was no way Hinata could see it, though, because her eyes were bandaged up. The wrappings around her eyes were just a safety measure to help her when she got too tired from using the Byakugan. Or, at least that's what Hinata told Naruto when they were still in Ninja Academy together. Because she had done it so many times over the years, Hinata got used to moving around the Hyuga estate without being able to see. Still, Hinata knew her two friends were there because she called them over with her famous smile that could make anyone happy and light up any room. Gaara stood awkwardly next to them as Naruto happily went to and talked with the girl. After the usual hello, Naruto gave the girl his bag, which had the Yamanaka Flower Shop's logo on it. He made a list of all the garden seeds and bulbs he bought. Naruto then told Gaara that he had a surprise for her. Gaara put the plant next to Hinata and told her it was an Adenium obesum, or desert rose. He then scowled at the Uzumaki boy for messing with it. He wanted to give it to her as an apology for how he behaved during the round of 16. He said he wouldn't do it, but he lost control in a bad way. It's too bad he couldn't keep that promise. But for now, Hinata smiled a little wider as she thanked the Sand Genin for the wonderful gift. Not sure how to describe how she made Naruto feel. His mood got a little worse, and his smile turned into a sad frown. As Naruto wished in his mind that Gaara had never given her the gift, he realized. He was angry. That's not funny at all. Yes, Hinata is truly amazing. She is the nicest kunoichi in the world, always laughs at his jokes, makes him feel welcome, has a pretty smile, and is so incredibly beautiful. He thought to himself, oh crap. I like Hinata a lot. Her dad is going to be so mad. Naruto? Hinata worriedly called out, stopping him in the middle of his thoughts. Are you all right? You're not talking like you usually do. She knows me so well. Naruto shook his head to clear his mind and lied, it's nothing. Thinking about the Chunin exams that are coming up tomorrow. But I need to talk to your dad. Hinata made a funny face with her nose scrunched up. 2. See if I can have a training session over gentle fist-fighting style, Naruto said, so I know for sure that I can beat Neji. Naruto was more sure than ever that he could do well in the final round of the Chunin exams after putting up with an unnecessary and tough training session with Lord Hiashi. Even though it was clear that the elders didn't like anything that had to do with the Uzumaki boy, Lord Hiashi agreed to a quick fight. He was excited to see how the boy would use what he had learned in the game with his nephew. Hiashi thought Naruto might be able to win the fight with the Inuzuka boy in the preliminary round after hearing about it. With the right help, of course. It took a few minutes for the unplanned training match to happen right away. It was up to Naruto to get the elders and Lord Hiashi to agree to let Gaara watch the fight. Because of what happened all those years ago, neither person liked the idea of someone from another country watching the exchange. After both of them insisted that the Sand Genin was their friend, Gaara's comment that Naruto was watching over Hinata and stopping Neji from killing her was what made them agree. Still, Naruto liked that Lord Hiashi wasn't holding back when he was giving advice during the battle. Naruto tried to adjust, but he couldn't help but look over at the Hyuga girl who was still temporarily blind. He couldn't help but wonder what she was thinking about the way she kept correcting him. When Naruto got his 5th or 6th critique, Hiashi told him not to look at the crowd as much as he was. The current leader of the clan pointed out that his nephew could use the short-lived dislike as an excuse to attack. The moment Hinata turned to talk to Gaara, Naruto couldn't help but look over at her again instead of focusing on the fight. To know that Naruto was jealous made him want to do something terrible to stop it. They were just friends, though, so he forced himself to keep quiet for now. After the hardest fight he had ever been in, Naruto made sure to thank Lord Hiashi for the chance to do it. Naruto knew that he had to be polite if he wanted to do this again so that the elders wouldn't make fun of him even more than they already do. Lord Hiashi gave him one last piece of advice before he and Gaara could leave the compound. That will stay a secret for now. He kept that one piece of advice with him until it was announced that his match with Neji would come first. Even though everyone told them not to go up to the Hyuga boy first. Naruto charged at the other person. Somehow, the boy with blonde hair ignored all of his so-called friends who called him stupid for going after a genius head-on. It was not worth the time. That kind of careless move would never really hurt anyone. But Naruto didn't mean to do that. Neji tried to hit one of Hyuga's chakra points when Naruto got close to him, just as Neji had said he would. With a swing of his hand toward the shoulder. By adjusting himself, Naruto moved out of harm's way and just missed the attack. People in the room gasped in shock, and Neji just stared blankly. He thought he had the distance wrong, but the cocky grin told him he wasn't. You really thought it was going to be that easy? Naruto teasingly said something. I am just getting started. Neji tried to attack the younger boy again while his nose was red with anger. Like before, Naruto easily dodged the attack by moving his body just enough to stay out of reach. Neji kept failing, and Naruto's smirk got bigger with each one. People couldn't help but be amazed by the scene, but no one knew what he was trying to do. One exception. Hinata and her teammate were sitting up in the audience, one row above the rest of the Rookie 9. She looked down at the battlefield with eyes that looked like the moon. She knew it was dangerous to keep her bandages on for longer than she should have, but she really wanted to see how the big match turned out. Naruto is trying to get Neji to lose his cool, Hinata told her friends. He knows if Neji gets frustrated, he'll be more reckless and have an opening to strike. How do you know? Sakura was curious. But Naruto can't have gotten this much better in just a month, right? He's fighting even better than his match with Kiba. He seems to know everything there is to know about the gentle fist style. My father gave Naruto that advice and many others yesterday during their spar. The clan elders actually agreed to it? Kiba was shocked and asked. They are so strict about everything regarding your clan's fighting style. Father overruled their disagreement, Hinata said in a soft voice. Naruto wanted to be ready for anything Neji threw at him. Even though Hinata's explanation made a lot of sense, Sakura, Kiba, Ino, and Choji did not believe her. They thought it was impossible for Naruto to ask the leader of the Hyuga clan for help and get it. Some people told them that the clan's training is very strict and intense. They were sure Naruto wouldn't make it through the first few minutes. But Hinata heard it for herself and, to be honest, didn't care that they didn't believe her. There was only one reason she did it: she believed in Naruto. In terms of the boy with blonde hair, he seemed to be doing pretty well against Neji's vicious attack. Naruto played with the older teen for a while for fun, then he put some space between them before going on the attack. After making 6 copies, all but one of Naruto charged at the Hyuga genius. Naturally, everyone was shocked when Neji created a chakra force field around her that pushed back any clone that tried to get close. No one had ever seen that jutsu before, so everyone gasped when they saw it. Naruto smiled, even though it looked like he was losing. Naruto said, "Lord Hiashi thought you learned how to rotate. Good thing he taught me how to counter it." After that comment, Naruto easily made 50 or more clones and got some small praise for being able to master a Chunin-level jutsu at such a young age. More than one moved toward the young genius. Neji blocked most of the attacks and attacked back against others. Neji chose to go after the one in the back that he thought was the real Naruto after almost half of them were killed. By hitting a chakra point in the shoulder. That Naruto vanished in a puff of smoke, but the other clones were still there. The Naruto clones got a little more cocky and took turns making fun of him by saying, "What? You thought the real me would be scared to go after you straight on? I know that the Byakugan can't tell the difference between a real shinobi and one of their copies. That was proven by your fight with Hinata. It worked if Naruto's real goal was to make Neji angry." It looked like Neji had lost it completely because he started attacking the clones without thinking. This showed that he wasn't really the calm and collected ninja that everyone thought he was. Neji hit every clone he saw for a few painful minutes before he finally hit the real Naruto. All the other clones disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Quickly moving away a few feet, Naruto grabbed his opponent's shoulder and tried not to wince. The fight yesterday taught Naruto how painful it is to hit Hiashi in a chakra point when they are not moving. Neji's hit wasn't even close to as strong as his uncle's, but it hurt anyway. Now that he wasn't so angry, Neji gave the boy with blonde hair a mean look. "Why are you trying so hard when you know you will never win?" He had a curious thought. Why does the main branch allow you to know so many secrets and treat you as though you were one of their own when you are nothing more than a pest? Why can't you forgive Hinata for something that wasn't her fault? Naruto replied with a growl that was almost mean. Why won't you let me or your uncle tell you the truth about what happened that night? How would you know the truth when you weren't even there? The angry tone of Neji's voice made him challenge. "You didn't meet Lady Hinata until a couple of days later. That's what you thought because that was the first time you saw me with Hinata," Naruto said strongly, wanting to make his point clear. I met Hinata on the evening of her 3rd birthday before everything went down when she ran away from the Hyuga compound. When he said that, Neji's Byakugan became a little less intense, but only out of interest. What are you talking about? Hinata ran away from her home, Naruto said firmly, because she snuck into the side branch's side and saw the ceremony of you receiving your cursed mark. Neji snapped his teeth together in anger and spat, "You're bluffing. You have no idea about the caged bird seal," Naruto said in a serious tone. Every member of the Hyuga clan from a side branch is given one to protect the secrets of the Byakugan. Hinata didn't tell me she ran away because she saw you scream in pain when the curse mark was put on you until many years later. I found her on an empty street and walked her back home before anyone in the clan asked where she was. Naruto clenched his teeth, which helped him keep his cool as he thought about that night when everything changed. He remembered, hoping that no one would notice his stumble, I decided to sneak into the compound while everyone was asleep to visit Hinata. As I walked through the back alley of the compound, I saw a cloud shinobi holding a sleeping Hinata. When he saw me, he put a kunai to her throat and said he would hurt her if I moved again. Then Uncle Hiyashi killed the man, Neji said with a knowing look on his face. My father was murdered in recompense so the main branch didn't have to make any sacrifices. It wasn't true, Naruto shook his head. Lord Hiyashi didn't kill the Cloud Ninja, he said. I did. I saved Lord Hiyashi's daughter's life, so he took the blame to repay me. After that, I don't know what happened, but I do know that Hinata blames herself because you blame her. I don't understand why you blame her when she's only 3 years old. What did she know that something was going to happen? That thought seemed to be on Neji's mind because the sparkle in his eyes got darker and his Byakugan stood out even more. Neji took a comfortable stance and told her, "You should focus less on making me know some tall takes and more on the fact that you were within range." Neji charged at Naruto before he could think about what he said. The Hyuga, genius, came at the Uzumaki boy's chakra points quickly and without mercy, so the boy didn't have time to move out of the way. The jutsu's name was so loud that Naruto couldn't even hear it. He was too focused on staying upright. Everyone was shocked that Naruto was still standing after being hit so hard, even though he was shaking a little from the pain. Neji smiled at the news. "I have hit all 64 of your chakra points," he said. "This match is over."
To everyone's surprise, Naruto laughed off the announcement.
"I don't think so," he said. "I still have a couple tricks up my sleeve." He placed his hands in the normal way for storing chakra. "Just like your uncle reminded me, I have a second source of chakra, unlike everyone else, and he is more than pissed at you." In the next instant, bright orange chakra quickly wrapped around Naruto's body. After a few seconds, every cut and scrape on his body healed, but the chakra kept going around him. Naruto's blue eyes turned a deep blood red with a black slit for a pupil. His teeth bared in an animalistic snarl, and his nails grew out like claws. His chakra also turned an odd orange color. Naruto got on all fours and glared at the smart but scared genius. "Here comes the fake to kick your ass," he growled. After the first fight was so fun, it was clear that Naruto deserved to win. Naruto charged straight at Neji while he tried to stop the attack with his rotation technique. This let the nine-tailed fox's anger out for a minute. When the two forces hit each other, there was a huge explosion that blew both genin back. Neji was the first to stand, but he was shaking. When the Hyuga boy saw Naruto lying a few feet away, he was sure the fight was over. Until Neji felt the ground below him shake, and someone hit him right under the chin with a fist. Neji was hit out of the blue and flew backwards. He landed on his back and couldn't move. He could only tilt his head up a little and glare at the person who beat him. Neji publicly scolded himself for not having thought that Naruto would use his best move, the clones, to play a trick on him. "The 3 times I failed the graduation exam, it was because I couldn't make a single clone that wasn't pathetic," Naruto said with a glare. "I was only given a 4th chance to take the test because I helped Hinata learn her clone jutsu, which you almost beat. That being said, Don't say that people can't change or that Hinata is bad. She made me who I am today, and I will never give up on my dream of becoming Hokage because of her. Naruto was declared the winner of the first match after his speech. The stadium was filled with loud cheers and applause as people praised his surprise win. Even though he could barely hear the hundreds of voices around him, Naruto could hear her voice, and it said that she was sure he could do it. It only took Naruto a few seconds to find her sitting in the stands with their friends after scanning the crowd. Naruto waved at her with a big smile on his face, thankful that she was there to see him win. His wave caught the attention of many people. Hinata turned red, but it was hard to tell if it was because of Naruto's gaze or everyone else's. It was planned that Sasuke would fight Gaara next. To be honest, most people came to see him. Everyone was interested in seeing how strong the last Uchiha was. He wasn't to be seen, though. With some help from the fourth Kazekage, the third Hokage made the decision that the match would be put off for now and the next one, which was supposed to be Shino vs. Kankuro, would go ahead. Kankuro gave up before he was called to the battlefield when he found out that if he won, he would have to fight his sister. Even though he was annoyed by what was going on, the proctor told the next two competitors to come down. Temari and Shikamaru did what they were told and went their separate ways to the main floor. The fight between them wasn't as exciting as the one between Naruto and Neji, but it was still pretty fun, since it was between two tacticians. When Shikamaru first arrived, he leaned against the shadowy wall to make his shadow possession jutsu more powerful. Temari kept running away until the shadow got too strong, and then she used her Tessin to make her wind side jutsu. Shikamaru was able to withstand every attack and make his jutsu a few inches longer every time he tried a new move. Temari thought she had won because she still had about half of her chakra while Shikamaru was at full strength. But then Temari found that she couldn't do anything on her own. The Suna Genin quickly figured out how she was tricked after being told she could look behind her. Shikamaru made Temari run away until she was close enough to one of Naruto's two holes in the match. Shikamaru used the basement shadow to trap Temari in the jutsu. Everything was set up just right. Up until Shikamaru quit the match. No one could have seen that kind of outcome coming. No one was pleased or happy with the average result. A lot of people in the crowd booed Shikamaru for giving up so quickly. The fight between him and Temari was over, but their story did not end there. After declaring Temari the winner and going back to where they were watching, it was time for Sasuke's match again. He was still nowhere to be found, though. As much as the third Hokage didn't want to disqualify Sasuke Uchiha, he said that Gaara would automatically win if Uchiha didn't show up in 15 minutes. The audience grumbled a lot and also said some things that made them wonder. The rookie 9 were mostly worried that he wouldn't make it in time. At the very end of the countdown, when Sasuke finally showed up, Kakashi-sensei was with him. He apologized for being so late, but he didn't say why. Gaara used his sand to teleport to the floor of the arena, just a few feet away from the Uchiha. So the proctor could do his job, Kakashi went to the viewing balconies. He started the fight by looking between the two very strong genin and calling it off. In the blink of an eye, Sasuke was gone. He came back a blink later, swinging his leg at the Suna genin. Gaara's sand almost didn't stop the attack in time. Everyone was amazed at how fast he was. When he wasn't wearing his training weights, it was even faster than Lee's. After the first block, the sand formed a protective cocoon around Gaara, and Sasuke stepped back from them. The Uchiha didn't think the sand would immediately form a wall of defense. In other words, Sasuke would have to use his new jutsu faster than he thought. Sasuke grabbed his arm while lightning went around his hand, putting even more space between them. There was a sound that many people thought sounded like birds chirping because of the high concentration of electricity. Chidori, Kakashi told the group of 9 rookies. Also known as Lightning Blade or 1000 Birds. Hinata was amazed by the show. She really wishes she could make a jutsu that could beat it. It would be amazing to see. Before she could finish her fantasy, Sasuke charged at Gaara. With each step he took, the Chidori became a little less stable. As soon as he was close enough, he hit the sand. In fact, he was able to break through the protective sand and hit Gaara. When Gaara started to scream at the sight of his own blood. He has never seen that before. When the sand felt Gaara's pain, it started to surround Sasuke's arm and try to crush it. Sasuke felt a little scared, so he used the Chidori again to safely break his arm free. He then moved back a few feet to see how the attack went. Sasuke's hand had been in the sand not long ago, so there was a small hole there. When someone looked inside, they could see the scary thing that was trying to take shape. Hinata jumped up from her seat because she saw it first. The rest of her group was shocked when she ran down the steps of the viewing balcony. They were all interested in what she was doing but didn't try to stop her. She could be as set in her ways as Naruto at times. When Hinata got to the bottom of the balcony, she grabbed the railing and yelled, "Shukaku." As if the sand had its own will, it stopped moving, as if it wanted to pay attention to the girl with the moon-shaped eyes. Hinata said in a harsh voice, "I will never forgive you if you hurt Gaara." The next second, the sand around Gaara went back into the gourd right away, before anyone could figure out what was going on. Gaara was on his knees and looked like he was totally worn out and trying hard not to fall asleep. Most people couldn't understand what was going on. Their genjutsu was broken by the enemy. Everyone around Hinata started to fall asleep at the same time that she could hear loud booming sounds in the distance. Temari and Kankuro jumped down to help Gaara. One of them said it was the signal, and the other tried to help their brother who was lying on the ground. Hinata last remembered seeing Gaara looking at her with a sorry face. Before, her eyes were covered with hardened sand. She barely held on to the sand, and when someone else tried to pull it away from her eyes, it spread even more. "It's not working," Sasuke said straight out. "I don't know what to." Hinata said, "Don't worry about me. Shukaku doesn't want me to see what's going to happen. Do not hurt Gaara if you go after him. He's my friend, but he's not in charge right now." Sasuke promised, "For you, I will try not to hurt him." The abrupt end of the Chunin exam was caused by many things. The Leaf Shinobi first learned that the Suna Shinobi had broken into the village and planned to destroy it. In the first few minutes of the invasion, the people from Suna quickly learned that they were not as strong as the other side, but they still tried to fight well. Too bad it wasn't a good one. The Suna Shinobi were shocked to find that their Kazekage had been killed almost an hour into the fight. Orochimaru, a traitor to the Hidden Leaf Village who gave Sasuke his cursed mark, was the one who took the role of the Hidden Sand leader and killed him. During the Chunin exams, he sat next to the third Hokage, who was his former sensei. When the explosion happened, Orochimaru took the Hokage hostage behind a wall that no one could get through. Unless Orochimaru died in some way. Second, Kankuro and Temari took their little brother and ran away deep into the forest that surrounded the Hidden Leaf Village. It was supposed that Shukaku, the One-Tails, would take over Gaara and cause trouble in the village. They just couldn't figure out why the whole change didn't happen. Until Gaara said something about his friends under his breath. Sasuke couldn't stop Gaara from becoming even more like the Shukaku, which is something most people already knew. Shukaku used Gaara's body to capture Sakura and said he would turn her into a monster if anyone tried to stop him. Like he always did, Sasuke stopped moving because he didn't want another loved one to get hurt like before. Even though Sasuke didn't know what to do, there was Naruto to save the day. They didn't think he would win, even though they had seen how much he had improved his strength. The only thing that made them think that was Naruto doesn't have much chakra. He had no more chakra to borrow from the Nine-Tails because he was too tired from the fight with Neji. That's what they thought. Even though Naruto tried hard with the taijutsu he knew, Shukaku's full version of himself was too strong for him. He was taller than the Hidden Leaf Village's huge trees. Shukaku was so big that Gaara, who was unconscious on top of his head, looked like a tiny dot. Even though Naruto only had a little chakra left, he somehow managed to call up Chief Toad, Gamabunta. Chief Toad fought the Shukaku hard and told Naruto that the best way to stop him was to cut Gaara off from him. Naruto jumped off his back and hit Gaara hard in the head, making him fall back and the two monsters disappear. Chief Toad then grabbed the one-tailed. Gaara finally woke up from his trance-like state as Naruto slowly crawled over to him on the rough forest floor. The Suna genin had forgotten about the fight. Seeing Sasuke ignore him to check on Hinata was the last thing he could remember. Gaara tensed up when she thought about the girl with the moon-eyed eyes and asked if he hurt their friend. Gaara let out a sigh of relief when he heard that she was okay and then said sorry for the trouble he had caused. Gaara and his siblings went back to their village, but Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura found a terrible tragedy there when they got back. "Dear Lord Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, you died in battle while guarding the Hidden Leaf Village." In the following few days, a funeral for Lord Third was planned, and every person in Konoha was invited. Nothing seemed important to do that day because it was so dark and sad. The Hidden Leaf Village still needed a new Hokage, though. The elders of Konoha gave Jiraiya and Naruto permission to find the Slug Queen Tsunade, who was thought to be the best person for Hokage. She was a legendary Sannin from the Third Great Ninja War and the granddaughter of the first Hokage. While they were traveling, Jiraiya talked about the steps to make the Rasengan Jutsu in a general way. Naruto had to figure out how to master each step on his own while the Percy Sage went to a nearby town to waste his money on con artists. Naruto spent almost a month training non-stop, day and night. Finally, he reached the last step in making the jutsu, which was putting all the steps together. Before he could figure it out, Jiraiya sent them to the next town, where they found Tsunade by some miracle. To make a long story short, Naruto and Tsunade bet on the Rasengan. If Naruto learns the jutsu in 3 days, Tsunade will go back to the Hidden Leaf Village and become Hokage. As a bonus, she will give Naruto her cursed necklace, which is only cursed because everyone she gave it to died in battle. Because, as the bet went, Tsunade's life was saved when Naruto blocked Kabuto's, Orochimaru's goon, attack and then hit him with the jutsu he had been training. The three legendary Sannin fought very hard, and at the end, Tsunade gladly went back to Konoha to become the new Hokage. The atmosphere in the village changed for sure when Lady Tsunade got there. More of the people who were hurt in the Chunin exam incident got better before they could finally leave the hospital. Lee's worst injury was miraculously healed by the fifth Hokage, who made him able to walk again. Even though a lot of good things had happened since she took power, it had to end with some tragedy to make things fair. A group of bad guys called the Akatsuki went on the hunt for Naruto after hearing about the Chunin exams. While Naruto was traveling with Jiraiya again, those two people attacked him. It looked like Sasuke joined the fight. He still wanted to get back at his brother Itachi for killing everyone in their clan. Even with Chidori, Sasuke's strongest jutsu, he was no match for his brother, who was way too strong. Itachi made fun of his little brother by slamming him against the hallway wall and calling him weak. He also said that his little brother can never beat him. The teammates made it through that day thanks to Jiraiya. Sasuke still wanted to get stronger, though. In the middle of the night, Sasuke sneaked out of the village to find Orochimaru. Only that traitor could teach him how to get stronger than Itachi. He was set on what he wanted to do. She almost did, though. Seeing how her eyes got teary when he talked about leaving the village and her, Sasuke almost gave up. He hates it when she's upset. In the end, Sasuke offered to take her with him so that they could be together. But her love for her village was stronger than her love for him, even though it was close. So, Sakura woke up the next morning on a bench, with a vague sense that someone was pressing lips against her forehead. Within a couple of hours, missions were sent out with Shikamaru as squad leader to get Sasuke before he got to Orochimaru. The missions were made up of most of the boys from the Konoha 11, which was their new name after the Chunin exams. Following Sakura's promise to bring Sasuke home, the girls of Konoha 11 watched from the gates of the village as they set out on their mission. They almost all died in the fights that broke out while they were looking for Sasuke. Choji and Neji fought until they were almost out of breath and won. Kim, Kiba, and Lee would have lost theirs if the Sand siblings hadn't shown up in time to help. With their help, the hurt and dead soldiers made it back to the village safely, where they were healed and miraculously lived through the operation. Naruto, on the other hand, failed to bring his friend home. Both of them were hurt so badly in the fight that it was a surprise that either of them lived. While Sasuke let his cursed mark consume him, Naruto let the Nine Tails make him angry. The orange bubble-like chakra around the jinchuriki made it feel like a protective cloak while also hurting him. The fight could have been a draw because both of them were equally strong, but Sasuke was able to get away while Naruto was knocked out and wasn't found until a few minutes too late by Kakashi-sensei. To keep Sasuke from going, he was in the hospital for a few days and didn't wake up until the third day. Friends who were well enough to leave their rooms came over every once in a while to cheer up the sad boy. He smiled again when she came back into the hospital room with a bunch of orange, red, and yellow lilies. His favorite flowers were those because he liked how well the colors went together. She knew him so well all along. Naruto paid full attention to her when she was in the room. He didn't notice that the other people had left or that the nurses had changed some of his bandages. He couldn't take his eyes off the beautiful girl in front of him. Her eyes were as bright as the moon, and she had that famous smile that could make anyone feel better. Naruto couldn't believe how quickly he liked her after he told her the truth. After only a few days, Naruto was finally let out of the hospital and determined to get stronger. For Jiraiya, the best way to get stronger was to train away from the village for 2 years, until the Akatsuki could make their next move and Jiraiya was strong enough to bring Sasuke home. I agreed, Naruto. But before he left, he wanted to say goodbye. Instead of leaving the next morning as planned, Naruto went into the Hyuga compound to look for her. He quickly found her where he knew she would be, behind the door, taking care of her flower garden, which is always getting bigger. Once more, Hinata could feel him standing behind her as she pulled weeds out of a flower bed that wasn't being used. "Did you just come here to say goodbye?" she asked, but she didn't look at him. "I was going to see you off later." Naruto said in a guilty voice, "I don't want you to see me leave." He was sitting next to her. She turned her head toward him. Naruto's eyes showed worry, while hers were filled with pain. "Why do you not want me there?" Hinata was shocked and her eyes were watering from the betrayal. "I believed we were close friends. Are you no longer interested in me?" "No." Before the wrong idea could become true, Naruto quickly denied it. "It's not that I dislike you. Because I love you too much." Hinata scrunched up her nose, clearly not understanding what was being said. "What do you mean, too much?" Naruto blushed and said, "I may have a crush on you." He did this while running his hand through his wild blonde hair. Hinata asked, her eyes widening at the statement, "A crush? On me?" Naruto cautiously agreed, "I knew I had one when I felt envious of Gaara giving you that plant the day before the last part of the Chunin exams. I think I had one a lot earlier than that, but I'm not sure." "If you're still there later," Naruto said slowly, "I won't want to leave. I would rather stay in the village with you than work out to get stronger. It's scary because my decision to leave is based on what will make you happy instead of what will make me happy, you know." When he told her, Hinata smiled because she knew she would be in the same situation as him if the roles were switched. She told him, "Make a promise to me that you will come home to me. That you will do something about how you feel about me if they don't change." As if she had put him in a trance, Naruto leaned forward and kissed Hinata softly, as if he had fallen in love with her. Both of them would have liked to stay that way forever, but Hinata pulled away first because she was shocked. She could not believe what had just happened as she lightly touched her lips with her fingertips. Her cheeks were bright pink. As he tried to hide his own happiness, Naruto smiled at her reaction and said, "I promise to come back home to you." It wasn't easy to get ready for the first Chunin exams in 2 years. Everyone didn't know what to expect, especially Suna, who helped make the test. A rumor says that part of the test will happen in Suna, where more people will die than ever before. Everyone was under a lot of stress about getting in shape so they could do better on the test than they did on their first try. Hinata, on the other hand, wasn't thinking about the tests. Her thoughts had been going back and forth to a certain boy with blonde hair and whiskers for a few days now. Just a few days before, it had been 2 years since he left. Following that, Hinata kept going back and forth between how much stronger he must be in the last gift he gave her before he left. When Hinata remembered the tingling feeling, her cheeks would always turn red, making other people wonder why she was blushing for no reason. Someone asked her why she was staring off into space, which made her cheeks turn redder. She knew she was daydreaming when she was caught. Now, though, Hinata was looking for someone whose chakra was like the boy from her dreams who was missing. Better yet, as the beast with tails inside him. As Hinata walked into the exam room alone for the first part of the test, she felt the same familiar feeling she had when she met Naruto and Gaara for the first time. But the anger that was in those two was replaced with longing. For a pal. Hinata looked around the room for the girl who was sitting by herself with no one else around. She was the only single member of each competing squad. Her short, mint green hair and orange eyes that matched the clip in her hair made her stand out. Hinata went up to the strange girl, even though her older cousin and friends told her not to. Hinata stood next to her and waited for the girl, who was startled by her, to look up at her before giving her the famous smile that melts hearts. "Hi," she said, "my name is Hinata Hyuga and I'm from the Hidden Leaf Village." "Nice to meet you." The girl woke up when Hinata put out her hand. The girl eagerly shook hands with the boy, and a big smile spread across her face. "I'm Fu. All the way from the Hidden Waterfall Village." When Fu introduced herself, she quickly added, "You have such pretty eyes. Those things look like the moon." Hinata laughed at what was said. "My best friend used to tell me that all the time," she said. "You remind me a lot of him." "You have a best friend?" Fu let out a gasp. "Do you want to be my friend?" "Of course." Hinata agreed with a sweet smile that made Fu fall in love with her. "Perhaps one day, when he gets back from training, I can put you in touch with him. I'm sure the two of you would get along great." "Really?" F smiled happily. "I can't wait." The first part of the test was very hard because Shikamaru and Tamari both had important parts in making it. It wouldn't be easy for them if their friends or teammates were taking the test. And just to make things interesting, they would make it as hard as possible. The first part was still a written test with just 3 questions worth 30, 40, or 50 points each. Each team had to get an average score of 100 points. If they got a score above or below that, they were out of the game right away. The soundproof rooms and windows that could only be looked out of meant that the team members couldn't talk to each other normally. There was only one rule, and it was both plain and clear. Don't fight. As everyone said, Neji was a genius. He came up with the idea of hitting the wall for a certain amount of time to show which question they would take. A shinobi from Suna offered to hit the walls so that the Konoha ninja would have to do all the work. As the shinobi scored the number of hits talked about. One more time, he swung his leg up against the wall, making it 5 instead of 4. Many people were about to freak out when Neji said that 5 would still get the message across about which question the team members would pick. 2 would answer the 50-point question, but the person in the room wouldn't say anything. He was mad that he had been tricked, so the Suna Genin pulled out his kunai and got ready to attack Neji. When the Hyuga genius pointed to the blackboard, the only rule that was written there was that no fighting. Neji told them they could still fight if the judge gave the go-ahead. Shikamaru's voice was immediately heard throughout the room, telling everyone that there would be no fight and that they should go back to their seats to finish the test. When Hinata sat down next to her cousin, she couldn't help but admire how smart he was. By leaving a well-thought-out clue in the other rooms. A lot of people didn't touch their test papers at first. But as time ran out, those who could talk to their team started answering a specific question, while others gave up and worked on a random problem without knowing if it was the right choice. Everyone was told to turn over their tests for the second part of the first exam when the time ran out. A lot of people were scared about what it might be, but it turned out to be a scenario. As a trick for the other team, each group had to write down the name of a staff member. They all had to get the same answer or not be able to take the Chunin exams. The person who was picked would no longer be able to participate. It took a while to grade the tests, and then those who did well were called out one by one to the schoolyard. When the teams outside saw that most of the other teams had all of their members, they were surprised. This was because they all left the back of their tests blank. Once all of the qualifying teams were out in the open, Tamari made the first of many announcements. Because of how the second part of the Chunin exams worked, any teams that had one less member were immediately disqualified. The grumbling genins were taken out of the picture and out of the way, and Tamari continued to explain. It takes 3 whole days to get to the area where the second part of the tests will be held, which is on the edges of Suna. Since there were still a lot of people from the first round, those who didn't show up by the deadline would be out. Fu grabbed Hinata's hand and dragged her out of the area so quickly after the last word that it took their teams a moment to figure out what was going on. They just made it in time to catch up before the other teams realized the challenge had already begun. It took longer than it was hard to get to the hidden sand village. Hinata could have kept up with Fu's team if her own had not stopped all of a sudden. Hinata asked her friend to keep going, but she turned around and went back a few hundred yards to see what was wrong. Kiba and Shino only want to know where the Konoha 11 teams are so they can join them on the rest of their journey. Hinata was clearly angry, but she didn't say anything out loud. Because the outcome was so important, they couldn't waste time waiting for their friends when they had a due date. She wanted to get to the place she was going with her new friend, whose name was almost her tailed beast. She also wanted to meet someone from Suna by being one of the first to arrive. Plus, when Team Guy caught up with them almost 30 minutes later, Kiba insisted that Hinata had asked to wait because she needed a break. This made her even more angry. Hinata didn't tell them no, she just let it go and walked ahead of the group, which made some people look at her with confusion and worry. She had one goal that kept her going the rest of the way: to see a friend from the past. Of all the people who came to the spot just outside of Hidden Sand Village, the 3 teams from Konoha 11 were among the first. As it was getting dark, the qualifying teams were all sent to a meeting room where the cage of Suna would talk about where to sleep and what to expect on the second exam the next morning. All the teams and their leaders bowed respectfully after impatiently waiting for a short time. The cage and his guard, who were his siblings and mentor, were close behind him. Well, everyone except Hinata, who smiled warmly and greeted her with the same warm tone of voice. She heard some harsh scolding whispered, and as he walked up to her, she asked, "Do I really have to bow to you?" The cage laughed, which surprised everyone. His green eyes were beaming with happiness, and his wild red hair shook lightly. "I would be offended if you did." "Good. Take a step forward, Hinata, and wrap your arms around him in a tight hug." He carefully hugs her back. "I've missed you, Gaara." Their friendly hug made a lot of noise among the people there at the time. Their talk could have been taken in a lot of different ways. First, it's true that Hinata's hug was too affectionate. Also, Gaara's hug back was way too warm for it to be friendly. And finally, Gaara addressed her as Princess. No, not her name. It's not Byakugan Princess. Just Princess, which made Hinata as lost as everyone else. But they were also afraid that there was more going on with him. Lord Gaara pulled away from her after holding on to her for longer than anyone thought he would, but he kept an arm around her while he spoke to the other competing genin. "No one dared to look at me during my own Chunin exams more than 2 years ago," Gaara began his speech. "This young woman and her childhood friend, they've known each other since they were 3 years old, came up to me without being afraid. She asked me to be her friend without knowing who I was. She had the nicest smile ever. I tried to brush her off, but her friend stood up for her and said she should have a chance to show that she can be a good friend. That was the start of what our first proctor thought was the best alliance in the history of the Chunin exam. She and her friend made me who I am today. I cannot thank you, or him, enough for what you have done for me, Gaara said as he turned to face Hinata to praise her. I hope you have a great time in the desert and that you will have time to visit Suna after you finish the second part of the Chunin exams. You and he will always be welcome in Suna, no matter what happens. Hinata was able to keep her smile on as she went back to her team. As she thought about what was going on with her old friend,
Hinata sneaked away from her Konoha friends on the way to the dining hall when she felt sand around her hand pulling her in a different direction.
her team probably wouldn't notice. Since they got to the checkpoint, they haven't looked at her again. From the sand, she found a way to get to the roof of the building. I didn't find it at all strange that the redhead was still dressed as a Kazekage when Hinata got to the top of the last step. The way he looked. He looked like he was carrying the weight of a whole village. As Hinata walked up to her old friend, she said, "The full moon is pretty tonight. I hope Shukaku doesn't give you much trouble because of it." She was surprised when Gaara laughed at what she said. He said with a hint of longing, "Shukaku is the last thing on my mind right now." Hinata asked, "What's wrong?" As she stood next to the new cage and enjoyed the view. "Have you heard from Naruto recently?" Gaara asked, purposely cutting the girl with the moon-eyed look off. "How is his training going?" Hinata tried not to blush as she said, "Nobody has heard from him since he left the village." She was caught off guard by the questions. "Have you tried writing to him?" Gaara had a question. "Since you were so close to him, I know you miss him a lot. You are welcome to borrow Takamaru, Suna's fastest pack bird. No one will even know he's not there." She raised an eyebrow and looked at her friend. She asked, "Are you going to tell me what's wrong with you? Or will I have to get the answers out of Shukaku?" For a short time, they were silent until Gaara let out a soft sigh. "The Akatsuki, the group after-tailed beasts, are on the move again," he said. Shukaku can tell when one of his siblings, as he calls them, is caught and their jinchuriki is killed. The jinchuriki have been cut down to 5 out of 9. They will eventually come after me. Hinata raised her eyebrow in a curious way. "There's something else," she said with knowledge. "What are you not telling me?" The Suna Council gave Gaara 2 years to find a spouse so that the Kazekage bloodline would not end. Gaara reluctantly agreed. "That's crazy." Hinata yelled out. "You just turned 16 a few months ago, and now they want you to think about getting married? Why?" Gaara said with a sigh of frustration, "If the Akatsuki were to kill me, there would still be an heir. However, they have warned me that if I don't have my own child by the time I turn 20, they will set up a marriage for Temari. They won't force me to date someone I don't want to. When she's already interested in someone, I don't want her to get involved with the council's political plans." "Who does she?" The only person that came to mind as someone who should get Temari's attention was Hinata. "I see what you mean, Shikamaru. But he wouldn't let her get married against her will. He'll stop it before it's too late." Gaara said, "I won't let it get to that. As soon as they start mentioning Temari again, I will offer to have an arranged marriage set up for myself. There has to be a better solution than that." Hinata gave it some thought for a moment before she woke up. "What about?" "No. You don't know what I was going to say." Gaara said, "We're going to suggest that you use your skills to trick the council in order to buy us time to come up with a better plan. It wouldn't work because of Naruto." Hinata made a funny face with her nose scrunched up. "What about him?" Gaara reminded him sharply, "You're the one who told me all those years ago that you have feelings for Naruto. Then wrote to me a week after he left about the promise he made and the gift you say he gave you. I think I know Naruto pretty well. If you asked him to, he would rush back to Konoha without a second thought." Hinata turned red at the implication. She said, "Maybe, and he would understand if we went with her idea. Being single doesn't mean we're dating, so he has no reason to be mad." Gaara laughed. "I give you 2 a week after you get back together before you start dating." I'll be the godfather of one of your children when the time comes." Hinata raised her cheeks in a darker flush as she forced herself to look away from her friend and say, "We'll think about it." The second part of the Chunin exams was not going the way Hinata thought it would. It turned out there was a huge fight in the dining hall, which ruined all the food. Choji, being the hungry teen he was, ran out into the desert at night to cross the checkpoint and get food in the sensei's room. Because the desert was dangerous, Sakura and Ino chased after him. There was a huge sand creature living in the desert that had all three of them locked up. From their rooftop, Hinata and Gaara could see what was going on and tried to rush to help them. The three were saved by Hinata's newest friend, who gave the monster a simple kick to the head, which made it let them go and run back to the desert. After such a crazy event, everyone just wanted some peace and quiet. But Fu greeted them with a lot of energy and asked to be friends and play games. A lot of people thought she was crazy, until Hinata smiled at her with her famously sweet face. She got even more excited, and Fu gave Hinata a hug without giving it a second thought. Once Hinata got the girl to let her go, she introduced the lively girl to her friends and coworkers. After looking at the new girl for a while, Gaara asked the girl with the moon-shaped eyes, "How do you always make friends with jinchurikis?" Gaara knew the answer to that one question, so Fu asked him 1,000 more about him and the tailed beast. Gaara calmly used his sand to take the girl to her room after the first 20 or so in a few seconds. 3 of the Konoha ninjas thought it was funny, but one of them was very nosy and asked the Hyuga girl in the case cage what they were doing on the roof together. The extra information will stay secret for now. In order to put an end to the rumors, Hinata said that they were just talking about their friend Naruto and wondering where he was training at the moment. Gaara had to agree that the Byakugan princess was very good at twisting the truth so that it was still not true but did make sense. The genin went back to their sleeping area for the night after all the excitement, but they still hadn't eaten. The Konoha genin were able to share 2 rooms, one for the girls and one for the boys. Tenten was nowhere to be seen when Hinata, Sakura, and Ino went back to their room. The girls thought it was strange, but they thought Lee had somehow persuaded her to join a last-minute workout. When neither of her teammates saw her the next morning, something turned out to be the right answer. Tenten ran up to her teammates with her hair in 2 buns, making it look like she had just gotten out of bed, when it was time to go outside for the second session. In a strange twist, Kankuro arrived later than his siblings, looking like he had also been late. That's strange. Tamari went over the rules of the second exam again once everyone got there, just in case anyone had forgotten over the night. Every team would get either an Earth or a Heaven Scroll, just like before. No one on any other team would know what the other teams have. In order to make it to the final exam, they have 3 days to get the whole set and go back to the checkpoint. Every genin had to sign a waiver before they could go because the desert was so dangerous. It only said that the person signing it knows the risk they are taking and that they could die in the desert, and Suna is not responsible for any deaths that happen. All of those people were crazy to sign that. Still, in just a few minutes, each team was off in their own direction. Also, Hinata wished it were over already. Kiba and Shino didn't pay any attention to her as they went through the desert, just like the day before. They walked ahead of the girl as they thought of ways to get the scroll without fighting too much. Hinata tried to say what she thought about the matter, but she was either cut off or ignored. What were they doing? They finally fought against another team on the last day of the final exam, which had been weeks in the making. They were adamant that they could handle their chosen opponent by themselves. It was the first time in 3 days that they had talked to Hinata about this. But when Hinata finished off her opponent, Kiba and Shino were still having a hard time with theirs. When Hinata helped out, she thought she was being a good teammate. Even though she stepped in, it was the 2 of them who did the final damage. That was what she thought they would have been happy with. They still scolded her, though, saying they could handle things without her help. Hinata told them, "We are a team. We are supposed to work together, as 3 people, not 2. I am a member of Team 8 just like you 2. That's not going to change. Hopefully it will once we become Chunin," Kiba said as he took the scroll from the other team. You keep holding us back and getting in the way. It's true, Shino said. We keep failing missions because of you. Hinata insisted, you two are being silly. I don't know what's going on with. Hinata turned around because she thought she felt something far away. As she used her Byakugan, her eyes grew wide with surprise and interest. Sandstorm, Hinata told her teammates. A massive one. It looked like someone created it. Kiba yelled, don't be silly. Why would anyone create a storm in the middle of an exam? If it is a sandstorm, we need to find shelter, Shino said, because we don't want to be caught in it. Even though it made a lot of sense, Hinata kept her attention on the storm while Kiba's question kept going through her mind. Someone should not have made a sandstorm during such an important event. They may have been interested in how the genin would react. Or did they want to catch someone? How about two? Please help. Hinata gasped in shock as she ran toward the center of the storm. She never heard her teammates tell her to stop. Hinata came across her cousin's group on her way to where the center of the sandstorm was thought to be. Neji must have felt something strange about the storm too, because the team agreed to look into it even though they only had 2 heaven scrolls and no earth scrolls. When they talked about it, Lee was worried about that, but Tenten was more worried about Hinata being in the desert by herself with none of her teammates with her. Hinata just shrugged and told her that they weren't acting like a team toward her. As soon as the 4 of them got together, they found the source of both the sandstorm and the trouble. 2 chakra chains stuck out of a man's chest and were inside a huge cocoon a few hundred feet away. He was playing an odd instrument. The chains were wound around 2 shinobi who were inside the cocoon. They just so happened to be. Little one. Please help. Dear princess. Help us. Oh, please. Team Guy heard Hinata say, it's Gaara and Fu. The enemy is trying to take their tailed beast chakra. If that happens, they'll die, Tenten said straight out, thinking it was true. I'll send a message to Ka, the tower, in hopes that they send reinforcements while you guys plan a way to stop them. A plan was made by the time Tenten sent the message. Lee would draw attention away from the enemy while Tenten helped Neji and Hinata inside the cocoon. He would then join the distraction. Things got a little more interesting once the 2 Hyugas were where they were supposed to be. The case cage asked, how did you know we were in trouble? As he watched the 2 Hyugas use their Byakugans to look around. I saw you while trying to find a way back to the checkpoint, Neji said. As for Hinata. Hinata said, I heard them, but then she quickly added, Shukaku and Chome. They were calling for help. Gaara turned up his nose at the strange name. Who is? You heard Chome? Fu asked in a shocked tone. And you know his name? How is that possible? I don't know, Hinata said in a shy voice. I just learned that I could hear the tailed beasts when we arrived in the desert. I don't know why now is different than before. After giving it some thought, Neji came to the conclusion that the chakra chains were absorbing the tailed beast's chakra through a single chakra point. Tailed beast or not, it is still chakra. If we block that point, the flow will stop and the chain will become loose enough for us to pull out at the very least. This may hurt for a moment. Neji was hurt though. Before Neji could touch the chakra point, Gaara's chakra hit him and burned his hand a little. Neji finally said, they want Hinata, as he bent his hurt hand. They don't trust me, especially Shukaku for what I did years ago. They know Hinata because of her kindness and friendship with you too. They will let her block the chakra point. No one else. Gaara agreed that it was worth a shot, but he added, please don't make me pass out from the pain. Hinata gave her usual heart-swooning smile, but her eyes had a sly glint in them. I make no promises. This may sting a little, so I'm going to count to 3. 1. 2. She hit the chakra point in the middle of her countdown, like the sneaky moon-eyed girl she was. Shukaku's chakra didn't attack her like it did Neji. The chakra flow stopped altogether, and the chain slowly came apart on its own. Hinata blocked Fu's chakra point on purpose while she was thinking about something else. Both chains were out of the jinchurikis and the protective cocoon after a short time. Fu chose to hold off on dropping her jutsu until they heard that the enemy had been defeated. That was so cool. F yelled as she looked at the limited enemy. She looked up at Neji and then let out a gasp. Your eyes. They look just like Hinata's. We're from the same clan, Hinata said in a soft voice. Neji is my cousin. Fu let out a loud gasp that made Neji swarm in an instant. She said, Hinata is my friend. Gaara is my friend too. I want to make 100 friends. Will you be my friend? When Fu got too close, Neji moved back and rolled his eyes in anger. If I say, yes, will you get away from me? When Gaara asked that question, Hinata pulled Fu away from her cousin just as he said he hoped to see them all again. He then ran back to the checkpoint, and Kankuro, the reinforcement, followed him back without knowing what had happened before. Hinata was about to do the same thing that Fu did, but she didn't want to. She wanted her teammates to not worry about her. Tenten told her no, though. The older teen really didn't like the thought of Hinata going on a trip in the desert by herself.
They shouldn't have let her go somewhere by herself that no one else knew about.
Neji and Lee agreed right away, and the younger girl was pretty much forced to join their team until they got to the meeting place. When they got there, Kiba and Shino didn't even look at her twice, but they made fun of her for waiting for them to check in before she did. I'm sorry. I care more about my friend's safety than a cruel competition, Hinata said in response. If you don't feel the same, then you don't deserve to be Hokage. Kiba turned his back on Hinata and growled. He then walked away, and Shino followed him without saying anything. Hinata slowly followed behind with a soft sigh so they wouldn't be kicked out of the competition. They had no idea that the worried looks that Team Guy was giving each other were caused by a strange interaction between teammates. The second exam was over, and Lord Gaara said that the rest of the exam was not going to happen. However, the genin could still be promoted to Chunin. From what he saw with his sand eye, Gaara wrote a detailed report on how each candidate did, which he will send to their village leader to look over. They will choose whether to promote a genin or not. Gaara suggested that everyone stay in Suna for the night since it was so late when the second exam ended. That way, everyone could get a good night's sleep before going home. FS was the only squad that didn't accept the invite. She looked forward to going back home to share her story with the leader of her village about her trip and the new friends she met. F gave Hinata a hug and said they would see each other again before she left. There was something off about the way Fu's hand touched Hinata's back when they hugged her. From the time F pulled away, that spot felt cold. Then Hinata's body felt like it was on fire and full of energy. Like a chakra. Funny enough, Fu only smiled slyly as she reached out to hug Gaara, which surprised everyone, even the Cage. Anyone else who left her didn't go to enjoy the hidden sand village with her. She stayed behind instead to take Gaara up on her offer to use Takamaru. But she didn't know where to begin. She had a lot of things she wanted to write and tell the boy of her dreams. One scroll only had so much room, and she was being selfish by asking for two. Plus, it would be hard for the messenger bird to carry them both. After giving it a lot of thought for hours, Hinata made the message short and easy. She wrote that she hoped his training with Lord Jiraiya, his godfather, was going well and that she couldn't wait to hear all about it. She told him that things were fine in the village, even though it was pretty dull without him there. Hinata said at the end of the letter that she really missed him, even though she knew that the training was more important. She said she couldn't wait for him to get home when he was ready so they could be together again like they used to be. At dawn the next morning, Hinata took the scroll and went to the Cage's house. When her friend joked that they hadn't read her love letter, she didn't blush. Gaara told them that they couldn't answer. When Takamaru drops off the scroll, the messenger bird needs to go back to Suna so that the council doesn't think something is wrong. Gaara didn't want Hinata to be caught because the council has been reading the letters that his siblings and he get. Hinata was upset about not hearing back, but she hid it well with a warm smile and said that just knowing he would get the letter was enough. The people from Konoha said goodbye to their friends in the sand and then went back to their village. It wasn't like Kiba and Shino said anything to Hinata for 3 days, but she didn't really notice. The thought of how Naruto would react to the message kept her busy. But some of their friends did notice and were going to talk to Lady Tsunade about it. In talking about the Hokage, she seemed very happy when the Chunin candidates came to her office to find out the results of the exam. Sakura, Ino, and Choji, who were on Hinata's team, were promoted to Chunin for getting both scrolls. Tenten and Lee were promoted even though they only had one scroll because of how well they could change their strategies on the battlefield so quickly. Neji, on the other hand, was promoted twice, from Genin to Junin, because he has shown that he can act and threaten at the Chunin level. With all of this great news, something had to happen that made Hinata's day bad. Little kid. Hinata jerked because she wasn't ready to hear the new voice. "Hey, Chome," she explained, pulling her attention away from the group's conversation to concentrate on the 7 tails. "What is wrong? I'm really sorry." All eyes in the room were on Hinata as she suddenly gasped and fell to her knees, hugging herself in despair while crying out, "No, no, no. It can't be true. She can't be." They didn't know what to do because Hinata had never been so crazy before. They had no idea what was making her act so crazy and different from herself. Neji and Tenten finally got down on their knees to talk to the young Hyuga girl. One of them comforted her while the other tried to get information from her. Though he tried to hide it, Neji was shocked to see Hinata crying so hard as he looked up at them. He thought she had never cried because he had never seen her cry before. Up until now. Hinata sobbed in pain, they killed her, and the tears wouldn't stop. Fu is dead. Naruto Uzumaki was about to start training again when a strange bird sat down next to him on his log. He had just finished eating lunch by the fire that Pervy Sage, or Jiraiya, if he preferred, had built. When the blonde boy saw the scroll on the bird's back, he barely had time to grab it before the bird took off back the way it came. Naruto carefully opened the scroll and took a quick look through the letter. A big smile spread across his face as he read more. Naruto stood up and set a new, clear goal for himself. He put the scroll in his pocket. "Pervy Sage, can we finish training while we're on the road?" "We can make it work," Jiraiya said cheerfully. "Where are we going?" Naruto smiled even bigger and said, "I'm going home to my Byakugan princess." Naruto couldn't wait to get out of the Hidden Leaf Village after training with the Percy Sage for almost 3 years. He was very interested in many things inside the village. Another person he's been dying to see since getting her letter was even more important. Naruto knew that he would have come back right away if he had gotten the letter after he left, even if it had been months or even days since he left. He really missed her. Naruto dropped his bag and ran into Konoha as soon as he saw the gates. He didn't care about the shinobi hailing his return. As soon as Naruto got inside the walls, he climbed to the top of an electrical pole without any trouble. He could see almost the whole village, which hadn't changed. He looked but couldn't see her. He was instead focused on looking around his house when he heard a few voices calling his name. He wasn't sure if it was really him. Naruto jumped down without any problems and smiled at Sakura, one of his old teammates, and Kanahamaru, one of his old students. Naruto had hoped that she would be the first person he would see, but he was glad to see them. He might be able to find her if he went further into the village. Naruto smiled politely as Kanahamaru told him about all the events and missions that the blonde-haired boy missed as they went through more of the streets he knew so well from growing up. Sakura saw right away that his smile wasn't the same as it was when he left. It felt fake in a way. It looked like he was waiting for the right time to smile his real smile. Even so, that important detail wasn't brought up at all as they walked to the Hokage's tower. While they walked and talked, Naruto would look around at the scenery, but he was really looking for her. When they got to where they were supposed to go, Naruto couldn't help but huff in frustration because he couldn't find her right away. So, when Naruto saw Lady Tsunade, or Granny Tsunade as he liked to call her, again in her office, he patiently went through the usual greetings before asking her carefully where she was. He never said for sure, but Lady Tsunade knew. "She's on a mission and will be back tomorrow morning," Granny Tsunade said, though her smile became a little sly. "From the letter Jiraiya sent a week ago, it looks like you'll be here tomorrow afternoon." She was one of the first people to find out. "When I told her team what they had to do, she would only go if I promised she would be back in time to meet you at the gates. If she sees you before she thought she would, she'll be very surprised." Naruto felt a lot of different emotions at the same time. The thought of her being so set on seeing him made his stomach flutter. Between them, his heart hurt with sadness and longing, even though he knew she wasn't even in the village. He clenched his fist to keep his anger inside. It's possible for him to live another day if he can go almost 3 years without seeing her. "Do you agree?" It was like Granny Tsunade knew he needed a distraction before he came up with the idea of finding her. She insisted that a test happen. She was interested in how Naruto's training went and whether Team 7 could still work together with one less member. Naruto and Sakura's proctor was already chosen by the 5th Hokage, who also gave him the freedom to choose how the two would be tested. He was very happy to see Kakashi-sensei sitting outside the office window and announcing that he would be their opponent. Kakashi told them that he wouldn't be quiet like he did those years ago. Since he had just arrived, the Chunin suggested that he take the rest of the day off to recover from his travels and start the test in the morning. Naruto, however, refused quite firmly. Naruto almost begged to take the test that day. He could finish it faster and hopefully be back in time to see her arrive at the gates if he started right away. That's a funny turn of events she wouldn't see coming. Most people in the Hokage's office were quick to say no to the idea, but Granny Tsunade agreed right away. The 5th Hokage suggested that everyone meet at the training field in 2 hours to help calm things down. She thought that everyone would have enough time to get ready for the test and for Naruto to drop off his things at home. He couldn't have been more shocked when he walked into his spotless apartments. There were no traces of dirt in any of the rooms. It looked like someone had made sure it was clean for him to come back. Which person would? "Oh, that smells like lavender." This is what she did. A big smile formed on his lips without him realizing it. His heart was beating fast with love. He said, "One more day," in a whisper that was just audible to himself. "Just one more day until we're together again." Going to school with the great pervy sage Jiraiya had some very good benefits. As Naruto and Sakura arrived at the training field, they watched their Sannin teachers come and go for almost 30 minutes before Kakashi-sensei finally showed up. The two students didn't believe him when he said he got caught helping a civilian with their groceries. They thought he was wasting a lot of time reading Naruto's new book, Make-Out Tactics, which wasn't out yet to the public. The same test would be given to the pair as before, the bell test. They have until dawn the next morning to get the 2 bells back from him. They will pass or fail based on whether they got all the bells and showed they can still work as a team. There would be a lot more trouble for them from Kakashi than there was when they first became genin 3 years ago. Through his Sharingan. For a short time, no one moved. There was too much worry about what would happen and who would do it. Naruto finally got tired of waiting and charged at the leader of his squad. As expected, Kakashi held him back with a few quick moves. But no one thought Naruto would have a clone behind Kakashi with a kunai on his back to stop him from running away. Kakashi told him he wasn't supposed to start the test yet, but praised him for being smart. With a puff of smoke, the famous copy ninja was gone as soon as he said, "Start." They should have been ready for it because Kakashi had already played that trick on them before. In a matter of seconds, Sakura found him and hit the ground hard, breaking it apart. Naruto wasn't expecting that move at all. Now that Kakashi knew that Lady Tsunade taught Sakura more than just medical jutsu, he also looked surprised. Naruto and Sakura didn't like how long the test went on for. They always thought they had Kakashi caught off guard or had the upper hand in a fight, but he would use substitution jutsu to disappear. Dawn was coming quickly, and they were both getting angry. Until Naruto had an idea that was so simple and brilliant that it helped him live up to his name, #1 knuckle-headed ninja. They caught Kakashi-sensei by surprise one last time just as the sun was rising. They chose to talk things out instead of hitting each other. Naruto used the biggest fear of book lovers against him by saying he knew how the new make-out tactics book would end. Kakashi put his hands over his ears as soon as Naruto tried to ruin the moment. He could still read his lips, though, because of his Sharingan. Kakashi desperately closed his eyes so that he wouldn't see too many details. He only opened them again when he felt someone standing in front of him.
Naruto and Sakura had the happiest and cockiest smiles on their faces as they held the bell.
Naruto laughed so hard that he couldn't hold back his laughter as he said that he had only read the first page of the book because it was so boring. He couldn't give away the story even if he wanted to. The comment made Kakashi hang his head. He couldn't believe he had really fallen from such a simple trick. As soon as the test was over, Granny Tsunade praised the two for working well together in their clever plan, no matter how silly it was. The fifth Hokage put the three of them back together as Team Kakashi, so they fought as equals instead of teacher and student. She also said that they already knew what their first mission would be. There are less than 10 minutes left for the three of them to get to her office. This is an important S-rank mission that can't wait any longer. The three people made it just in time, even Kakashi, after quickly stopping at their homes to get more clothing and supplies. To save time, Lady Tsunade said, "I won't say it again." This was the most serious tone she had ever used. Because this mission is so dangerous and you're missing a member, I've added a temporary fourth member to the squad. They will be here soon after leaving their current assignment. You will tell them anything they didn't hear in this briefing on the way to your destination. I was told that adding this shinobi would make things more difficult, but I think they are best for this mission with you, Naruto. Naruto blinked because he was confused. Me? Why? Because you are. Come on, come on. What perfect timing. Come in. Lady Tsunade yelled louder so the knocker could hear. As Team Kakashi turned to look at the new visitor, the door quietly cracked open. Naruto was thrown into a state of shock where time seemed to stop. His jaw dropped in shock as his eyes got 3 times bigger. He thought his heart would burst when it started beating so fast. At the door, there was someone who looked a lot like a princess. He almost wanted to call her that right now. Her favorite color was lavender, and her dark navy blue hair fell to her waist. Naruto's eyes, which were beautiful and had holes in them like the moon, were always the thing that caught his attention. As soon as he got lost in the iridescent color, his eyes got bigger, and he could just barely make out a gasp over the sound of his own heart beating. Naruto. The whisper was so full of feeling that it sounded like it might burst at any time. Is it really? He had to do it. Naruto moved quickly forward without giving it any thought. As soon as someone said something about how careless he was, he almost tackled the young woman and lifted her off the ground with ease. She softly squealed and put her arms around his neck to keep herself safe. She scolded him lightly, "Naruto. Get me down." Naruto did what he was told, smirking softly, but he kept his hold on her. "I can't help it, you know." He kept saying it with a silly grin on his face. "Hey Hinata, I've missed you. You look so beautiful. You know you've changed a lot. What's up?" "Oh. Every town I went to, I bought flower seeds for you. After training, I can bring them to your house and you can tell me everything I missed." Hinata smiled softly as her face turned a pale pink color at his full attention. "That would be great. I've missed you so much. I want to tell you about a new friend. She made me think of you so much." "That will have to wait," Granny Tsunade insisted, and it was amazing that she could wait so long for them to get back together. "For this mission, you two need to put aside your friendship." So Naruto, you need to control your anger if you don't want another Hyuga affair to happen. As the Kage's first friends, I thought it would be best for you both to work on this together. The words of the Hokage made Naruto tense up. It seemed like something bad was going on, even though he knew about the new Kage and was happy for him. What happened to him? Lady Tsunade softly sighed as she said, "The Akatsuki have taken Lord Gaara hostage." She knew he was about to lose it. "This is what I know," Lady Tsunade began to talk. The Akatsuki attacked the hidden sand village at night and took Lord Gaara by force. While others tried to keep things calm in Suna, Kankuro went after them. I got the message, but I haven't gotten a follow-up letter yet. The worst thing that could happen is that Kankuro has been hacked and the Akatsuki got away. Everyone tensed up when they heard the news. They knew that one of the Akatsuki's goals was to capture all of the tailed beasts for some reason they didn't say. Naruto didn't think they would go after Gaara so soon after he became Kage. When Hinata moved, Naruto had to break their connection, which he didn't want to do. "Do we tell, you know who?" she asked in a soft voice. "Or should we wait, just in case everything is fine with him?" After thinking about the idea for a while, Lady Tsunade let out a sigh of thought. She chose to hold off for now. She doesn't need any more attention, especially since this is her first mission since what happened a few weeks ago. She would be the first person Kankuro would call if something bad had happened to him. "Right now, I want you to go to Suna and help them find the Lord Kage in any way you can. In that case, if the council says they are not going to look for him, you may ignore their order. I'm sure you two will not agree with the idea of giving up on him." Sakura spoke to Milady with respect and asked, "Why do you think the Suna Council wouldn't want to look for their Kage?" "I received Kankuro's message an hour after he sent it, according to the timestamp on his scroll," Lady Tsunade shared. "The council sent me a scroll not long ago, but it was blank and didn't have any instructions on how to read it." In their defense, Takamaru should have shown up 2 hours after Kankuro's message, not 6. I'm sure the Sand siblings will find out why they took so long to send him. Do not listen to what the council says. Save the Kage. I'll take care of them if I have to. You are fired. It goes without saying that Team Kakashi and Hinata left the village faster than they ever had before. Once they were outside the village walls, Naruto led the charge until Sakura told him he didn't know where he was going. After traveling for about 30 minutes, they saw Temari walking out of a tea house. She had been to the village to study for the Chunin exams. Temari looked horrified when she heard what was happening to her brothers. They told her she had to go to Konoha even though she knew something bad was going to happen. She could have helped stop such a disaster if she had just stayed behind. The new group of 5 shinobi didn't waste any time going over everything they knew before quickly continuing their journey. Naruto quickly took back the lead. At first, none of his friends spoke up because he was close enough to grab most of them if necessary. Hinata, who was already at the back of the squad to keep an eye on things, was the only one who couldn't touch him. Naruto's bitter temper finally got the best of him, letting him fall way ahead by accident. "Slow down, Naruto," Sakura yelled. "You are too far ahead. Tell me not to. What should I do?" He turned his head to stare at the girl with pink hair. It's true that the 4 people behind him jumped when they saw his eyes. They were deep red with black pupils instead of his usual bright blue eyes. Something else made their hearts turn brown. His eyes were so full of tears that some of them would not stay in. Naruto said, "Gaara is my friend," and his angry tone made it clear that he meant it. "I can't do nothing while the powerful people in his village want him dead. I will save him." "We will," Sakura said in a calm voice, "but you are moving too quickly." She was in the middle of another mission when she was given this one.
You know she's tired. She was about to say something else when a blur of pastel and blue colors rushed past her, now keeping up with Naruto's fast pace.
When Hinata glared back at the medical ninja, her Byakugan seemed to get stronger. Ina warned, "Don't use me as an excuse to slow down. I lost F already. You can't keep up, so I won't lose Gaara." When she said that, Hinata jumped ahead of Naruto. Even though her behavior had caught him off guard, Naruto smiled silly when he yelled at the three of them, "You heard her, slowpokes. You know, hurry up or we'll leave you behind." After going almost as fast as possible for 2 days, Kakashi finally got his stubborn best friends to agree to take a break. No matter how fast they go, they will still need 3 days to get to Suna. Naruto chose to stay on a branch so he could move when the break was over. Sakura, Temari, and Kakashi were happy to sit on the forest floor next to a tree trunk with Kakashi. A short time later, Hinata joined him. She had a grin on her face and eyes that looked like the moon. "You know." In a soft voice, she told her friend, "We don't have to wait for them to keep going." Naruto looked at her with a raised eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I've been to Suna before, during the Chunin exams," Hinata said with a smile now on her face. "Gaara told you and me that we could go into the village whenever we wanted. We can leave now to help Suna and wait for them there. Or, we find out what Suna knows about Gaara's captors and go save him ourselves." Naruto smiled evilly as he thought about it for a moment. "I like the way you think." He took her hand and said, "Let's go, Haim." The couple was ahead of the trio for a short time, but the trio was able to catch up. They got a pretty harsh scolding from Kakashi once he could see them. It occurred to him that they would have gone farther if they had taken a short break. He told them that bad things would happen if they went off on their own again. The two of them were smart not to say anything. Too much of their attention was on getting closer to Suna. They got to the edge of the desert in about an hour, and Temari insisted that she lead the way for the rest of the trip. Just as they got halfway through the hot land, a sandstorm came on faster than anyone thought it would. Sakura pretty much told them they had to find a safe place to wait out the storm. Kakashi thought it was the best thing they could do, but Naruto and Temari didn't want to wait since they were already so close to the village. But Hinata said, "I have a better idea," as she looked through her bag. "Hold on to each other. Hold on tight and close your eyes until I tell you to." The Hyuga girl took out a long, thick piece of fabric and wrapped it tightly around her eyes. Then she typed it in the back. That she could do it so well now made Naruto proud, even though it only took seconds. But he was also scared. Has the strain on her eyes really gotten worse since he left? When Hinata was sure that the bandages were in place, she grabbed Naruto's hand because it was the closest to her and used her Byakugan. She said, "Here it comes. I can get us to the gate before it ends as long as you trust me." When Kakashi said, "Lead the way, Hinata," he let her take charge. "Just don't let being stubborn hurt your eyes. The person who told me about the rescues you and Team Guy did during the Chunin exams said that your eyes are still not fully healed." Hinata said with a soft smile, "I'll be fine. Besides, I learned my stubbornness from the most stubborn jinchuriki of them all." Because Hinata was so brave in that situation, Naruto couldn't help but be proud of her. Their walk through the strong winds and whirling sand that kept hitting them made her step steady the whole time. Almost every second, she told them how far away they were from the storm's edge, what obstacles they had to get over, and how close they were to the village walls. Since she wasn't with them, they would have been stuck in a cave while they waited for the storm to pass. That fact alone made Naruto admire her even more than before. In times of need, she wasn't afraid to step in and help. Everyone should be as brave as she is. At the exact moment that the storm got even worse, they got within a few feet of the safety of the village. A few Suna shinobi were shocked to see them get through the storm. They were even more shocked when Temari showed up traveling with the Konoha group. Even so, the Suna shinobi quickly calmed down and led the group to the hospital while telling them everything new they had learned. Hinata held on to Naruto the whole time because her eyes needed a break. They thought Kankuro's injuries would be less serious than they were. Asahi's member, a rogue ninja from Suna, attacked with a poison that their top expert didn't know how to make. It was only a matter of time before the poison would kill him. She was told by Sakura to check on the sick ninja. She was sure she could finish the antidote before it was too late because she had trained with the best medical ninja in Konoha. Luckily, the shinobi with pink hair was able to quickly figure out what was in the poison and get rid of almost all of it. As Sakura took out the poison, she thought of everything she would need to make the cure. As soon as she said Kankuro's life had been saved, Lady Chiyo, a Suna elder, was very angry that Leaf Shinobi had to help save a Sand Shinobi. Even when I told her that Hinata and Naruto were the Lord Kage's best friends, it took a while to calm her down. Even so, Baki pushed Lady Chiyo, Naruto, and Kakashi into the hallway to finish their argument there. Hinata stayed in the room because her eyes were clear enough to help. After some time, Sakura was done with the medicine. After the antidote was given and had time to work, Naruto and Kakashi were led back into the room. Kankuro told what he remembered about the fight with the Akatsuki member. During the fight, Kankuro was able to grab a piece of the enemy's clothing, knowing that it would help him find them. Within a short time, one of the Suna Junin came along with a cart full of all of Kankuro's puppet parts that they had been able to find. He should have done something for the crow, but instead he instinctively reached for the small wind-up bird that didn't seem to belong with the masks. Kankuro was almost there when he felt pain in his chest that made him lay back. Tamari took the little bird and let go of the jutsu that was on it, being the great big sister that she wants to be. The puppet changed into a scroll with the word Kuro written on it with a puff of smoke. In some way, Naruto was able to wait while Kankuro read the message. Naruto felt better when he saw the hurt teen calm down and relax. Whatever was written on the scroll had to be good news for him. Kankuro mumbled an apology as he rolled up the scroll and put it next to him. He was having trouble remembering where he was. The crow's hand opened with a flick of his wrist. Asuka's cloak's small piece of black fabric was inside. When Kakashi called his ninja hounds, Pakun and Naruto quickly reunited with each other. The copy ninja then told them to rest as much as possible before the hounds came back. The Konoha shinobi were stopped before they could be taken to a private room to make a plan. "Please save Gaara," Naruto, Kankuro begged, his eyes tired. "I lost my child already. Please don't kill my little brother too." As you might have guessed, people who saw the request had a range of reactions. They all had wide open eyes, but for different reasons. Everyone in the Suna clan who didn't know was shocked when they heard that Kankuro had a baby at such a young age. She was shocked that he told everyone about the secret so quickly, since he had meant to keep it from the council. The Hyuga girl made Tamari and Baki feel the same way. What surprised them more was that Kankuro was willing to let someone else save his brother. Even with everyone looking at him, Naruto smiled to calm himself down. "Do not worry," Naruto promised, "I won't let anything bad happen to one of my best friends." His smile got a little cocky and sure of itself. "Besides, I'm going to become Hokage one day, so the Kage can just owe me one."
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.